everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. I'm your host. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me, I have Josh Torres.
Hi, hello.
We have James Galizio.
Hey, folks.
And we have Chow Min Woo.
How's it going?
So Adam is supposed to be here, but he is, I think, asleep. So he might be rolling in. It might be 5 minutes. It might be 50 minutes. It might be never. We don't know. We'll keep an eye out for him. And the thing that we surmised might happen, if you listened to the podcast last week, did indeed happen. So the main two events of the last 7 days is that we had both a Nintendo Direct and a PlayStation State of Play, on top of the already busy just general release schedule. We would have had plenty to talk about regardless, and now we have even more. So this is a all of a sudden surprise packed podcast. So Adam's absence, if he doesn't show up, will be missed, but I believe in the rest of us that we can carry that weight and go forward. So we will still talk about some new releases here at the start of the podcast, but we'll try to keep it a little bit more brief, just in the service of all of the coverage that came out of those two events as well, because we want to make sure we at least hit all the major headlines. Some of the ticky-tack, more ancillary stuff might not be covered here until it shows back up later in the month, because there's a lot of headlines here, and want to try to be out of here and at least in not any longer than 3 hours. So we'll hit the major highlights. We'll talk about the major games that released in the last couple days, and we'll kind of play it by ear from there. So that sound good to everyone?
Yeah. I mean, there's not a ton of news. I mean, nothing really in the world of RPGs or anything.
We've had worse Nintendo Direct days, Nintendo Direct weeks, but it's still pretty packed. So this isn't the most giant load we've seen, but it's still quite a lot. But we'll start out. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I thought it was a very good Direct, but it's a very niche kind of audience kind of Direct. So I could see like all the mainstream gamers just fucking hate it, and they kept watching it. It's kind of hilarious. So at least it's what I see.
Well, when the Direct was going on, I was kind of stuck at work without access to like social media or my phone or anything. So I kind of came to it all after the fact. So I just had like a bomb load of like, here's 30 trailers. And I wasn't sure at first what was in the Direct, what was in the State of Play, what was just independent of both those things. So I believe I got all the details down, but if I misstate that something was shown in a Direct, but it was just shown on the same day, not in the Direct technically, I apologize. Hopefully we'll try to minimize little errors like that, but we'll go on. We're going to start out with probably, I'm not sure if this is the most major release of the week, but it's probably got the biggest headline, and that is the release of the first part of the DLC expansion pass for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So I've seen on our site, we've had a lot of guide news posts and features going up for all sorts of games, for Starfield, for Scarlet and Violet, for this. And I know that James has been taking kind of the taking point on covering this new Pokemon DLC. So we'll hand off to him to start out. So James, tee us up. What was, because this kind of snuck up on us because it was something that was announced but kind of fell under the radar until it released just in the last couple of days. What is the new Pokemon DLC? How's it set up, and how are you enjoying it so far?
So, with the last major Pokemon games in Sword and Shield, Game Freak switched from having it be we're going to release an entirely new game to, we're going to support our currently released games with DLCs to kind of bring them up to the status of what would have been the third game or whatnot in previous centuries. So Sword and Shield had like a dual pack of DLCs, the Isle of Armor and then the Crown Tundra, but they were both in one pack. You couldn't buy them separately, which didn't make much sense because neither of them really needed the other to make sense story-wise. But one thing they're doing with Scarlet and Violet is they're very explicitly saying, yeah, no, these are two parts of the same story. It's the hidden treasure of Area Zero, and then the first half is this one, which is like called Part 1, the Teal Mask, and then the next one will be out later this year, so in a couple of months from now. So despite my review for Scarlet and Violet, which again, just to remind people, I gave it a 6. I really enjoy that game. The reason I gave it a 6, though, is because, and I kind of said this on Twitter earlier, and I think it's really the best way to put this. If this had released for literally any other platform and Nintendo wasn't publishing it on that platform, it wouldn't have passed cert. The performance is still terrible, and there's still all sorts of glitches, and it's just I part of me was hoping that maybe they would have fixed things in time for the DLC, but it's just as bad as it was at launch.
That's not great to hear. I would
Yeah.
have thought like they would have patched it up by now, but
Yeah,
well,
no. But it's like if you can get over the performance, which is a big if, it's still great, but like one of the reasons why I liked the Sword and Shield DLC so much is that most of the issues with that game weren't performance, at least if you weren't playing online. If you like turned online play on, then like performance would fall off a cliff in any of the wild areas and basically be as bad as Sword and Shield. Well, worse than Scarlet. Well, not worse, about as bad, maybe a bit better than Scarlet and Violet. But like the main problem I had with those games was the content. So having the additional content from the DLC packs really kind of salvaged those games for me. But Scarlet and Violet, it didn't really need any extra content. Like maybe like one or two things. Maybe like the ability to challenge the Elite Four, something like that. But besides that, it had plenty of content at launch. I really enjoyed the like gameplay changes that they like introduced, like the whole new sort of like framework of it all. But the main problem that I had, and seemingly most other reviewers that gave it lower scores had, was just the game doesn't perform well. It doesn't perform anywhere near well. And unfortunately, I guess like there's neat stuff that they've added with the DLC. There's a few new like mini game type things. There's like a whole new map, which is not as big as the original game's map, but like decent sized. There's like a bunch of new and returning Pokemon. There's some neat new legendaries, some neat new like kind of paradox, well, not paradox, neat new forms of existing Pokemon like Blood Moon, Ursaluna. And it's like it's good. It's fun. I wouldn't necessarily say that the first half of the DLC, performance aside, is something I'd recommend people go like rush out and get, because it's definitely pretty short. It's like maybe 10 hours to do everything the DLC has to offer, and I mean everything, like including the Pokedex stuff.
how do you access this DLC? At like what sort of like level range should your Pokemon be before like tackling it?
So you can access this from basically the beginning. So I think it's like with the Sword and Shield DLCs, where the levels of the Pokemon you're facing is going to be dependent on when you enter it.
Okay.
So if you've already cleared the story, then it's going to be like post game levels. Like the wild Pokemon are going to be like mid to high 60s. Some of them are going to be above level 70. And then like all the trainers are facing are going to be similar.
Okay.
Um, Basically, you load up the game once you have the DLC installed, and then you literally just get a call like from a character from the academy, whichever game you're playing. It like has a different name depending on the academy. Well, depending on the game. And then you just go back to the main building in the main hub and talk to this new NPC, and then you're on your way. Pretty quick, pretty seamless. Just yeah, I enjoyed it. Um, some of the new Pokemon are neat. Some of the returning Pokemon, it's great to see them back. But again, it's like it's just disappointing because I was really
Mm.
hoping that they would have fixed things up by now, but no, it's still bad.
What
This
is
new
like the
expo-
main hook for like if like I'm like 2/3 of the way through Scarlet Violet. Like what is the like is there like a signature Pokemon for the DLC or I
Yes.
okay, because I saw like a lot of the I'm gonna say this word wrong, Hisuian, like all the ones from Legends Arceus, like a lot of those are making presence in this DLC. I'm like, oh, that kind of makes sense that so that when those would appear again. But like what is like the key incentive to like, oh yeah, I really want to jump on this because that's neat. Like a new Pokemon or a new form.
So there's basically four new legendaries. There's Ogerpon, which is a neat little one, which has a gimmick where you can give it one of four masks, and that changes its secondary type and the typing of one of its moves. There's, I think it also slightly changes its stat makeup. Don't quote me on that. Then there's like another 3 that are kind of like part of this like trio. They're all like a poison type with a different subtyping. Like there's Monkey Dory, Okidogi, and then I don't know how to pronounce the name of the bird, but there's a bird.
There's a bird.
Yeah. So there's that. There's also a new like Ursaluna form, which isn't a legendary, but might as well be a legendary or like a paradox because it's strong. It's the only way you can get it. You get it at level 70. So it's like it's not a legendary, but the way you get it is like similar enough. So there's that. Uh it's good. It's fine. I don't know what I'm gonna write about it. I don't know if I'm gonna write about it yet because
Or maybe just wait for the part 2, maybe just for the whole
yeah,
package. Mhm.
yeah.
Um,
But
like
we'll see.
the new explorable zone, can you still like use that vehicle Pokemon from the base
Yes,
game too?
yes.
Okay, okay, all right. I mean, yeah, it seems like it feels largely obviously by being part 1 in nature, just feels like something's missing, and hopefully, but I don't think the performance issues are going to get solved by part 2, but hopefully it'll be, it'll make sense by part 2 and something more substantial, seeing how it rounds out the whole thing.
Gonna be
But,
fucked up if the only way this game runs well is on a Switch 2.
yeah, I mean,
Any day now.
yeah, we'll see. What's your favorite new or returning Pokemon in this that you saw in this DLC?
Um, I very much do like that they brought back Hisuian Growlithe and Arcanine because I do love especially Hisuian Growlithe. It's just so cute. It's so
Yeah.
cute.
It's got like the mop top. You can't see its eyes.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Seems just kind of like more Pokemon, but unfortunately, that also means more performance issues. Like it's when we say more of the same, sometimes that can be a good thing, but sometimes that's like, oh, they still haven't fixed this. They haven't addressed this. This was the key deficiency of the base game. And this would have been a time to have been like, yeah, the game itself has a good foundation. It's got a good system. It has a lot of new ideas, but it had this one kind of big glaring flaw, this Achilles heel that is kind of, reminding you that it's still there when you play the DLC.
Is there like
When,
DLC like exclusive like raid content in this too?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, when you do the YCOM stuff for like raids and whatnot, which again, I knew a DLC wasn't going to fix this, but the fact that this shitty multiplayer system was already a problem in Sword and Shield that I pointed out in my Sword and Shield review, and at the time, people were like, "Yeah, I can't believe other reviewers didn't mention how dog shit this is," and then they just kept it for Scarlet and Violet. It's like, God. But anyways, yeah, there's like a exclusive raids to the DLC, and you can tell because if you go like into the Poke Portal for raids and you're online, you'll see like a separate list of raids for the region that the DLC is part of, the Kitakami region. So
Okay.
and when's the schedule for the next part of the DLC? Is it like before holiday or is it early next year?
it's this year. They just didn't say an exact date yet, so we'll probably get that in like a month and a half or so. I don't know. Well,
Yeah,
not get it, but we'll probably get the date in like a month or and a half or so.
the reason why I
So
ask is because it just seems like there's not a ton of incentive, unless you're like you adore Pokemon and you really want to jump in on day one, that's fine. But like it's so packed right now in September, October. It's like, okay, I'll just wait for both parts because it seems like it's not going to be too long of a wait. And then you can just kind of pack them both, back to back and kind of get the media's experience back in Scarlet and
yeah,
Violet.
yeah, it's like I enjoyed my time with it, but I'll be honest, the main reason I played this at launch was kind of, I don't want to say obligation, but obligation's probably the best word for it.
Mhm.
Kind of like due diligence. Like, yeah, we should, that way we can speak to it when it releases, and you're also kind of teed
Yeah.
up for when the next part comes in. You already are aware of the new region and things like that. Because is the second part of the
Yeah.
DLC going to just expand
No,
the
it's another
current
new
new
region.
region? Oh, it's another new region. Oh, that's pretty meaty.
Yeah. But
Game
yeah,
Freak's ambitious, if nothing else. It's sometimes it's just like slow down, just let it cook. I guess is kind of where I'm
yeah,
at with Game
yeah,
Freak right now.
yeah.
No, but thank you for giving us at least a brief, quick look at the new Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC. So we'll kind of wrap back into that when the second part releases. And then another release of this week that we'll go ahead and talk to at least for a little bit here is something that I've seen a lot of excitement for on social media, like in our mentions and our like following on Twitter specifically, and that is the game Eternights. So I remember when this game was first announced, Josh, that it didn't seem like it had a lot of hype behind it, but recently I've been seeing this game show up a lot more with a fair bit of fervor behind it. So tee us up, remind us what is Eternights, and you had a chance to play it, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I believe this game was first unveiled like in a state of play actually, or some PlayStation live stream thing some months back. And it was this, action game that definitely was inspired by Persona. You had like the anime eye cut-ins, you had sort of like the calendar system, very much like trying to make the impression that like, yeah, we're definitely inspired by the Persona series in that regard. I don't know exactly why there's so much fervor behind the game aside, like an action RPG that's sort of, yeah, but a slimmed down Persona experience. It's the studio sized debut project. It's largely, not entirely, it's largely a solo developer endeavor. There's like one full time developer who worked on this, and then there was obviously some help, like in the art, the audio, um, and the voices obviously and whatnot. But it's for this to be the studio size first debut project. It's definitely ambitious, and I always respect people giving it their first shot. Like your first the first thing that you produce and you ship might not always be your best, but it's something that you can always build off of. Um, when you take see what works, see what didn't, and then refine whatever you're working on next.
Well,
So
not being a game developer, I have to imagine kind of getting your first game out there, seeing it on a
yeah,
store shelf or a digital market has got to feel really rewarding, even if
oh
it doesn't
yeah,
have the highest
absolutely.
reviews, because then you feel like, you can do this, you've seen it all before, nothing is brand
Mhm.
new, and you can iterate at that point.
Yeah, it's always scary to get your first one out there. So like this will be definitely up some people's alley. For me, I was like, okay, well, it does some okay things here and there, but largely I didn't like what it was going for. So the premise of this game, I was initially intrigued by this because I played a demo of this at some Steam Next Fest event, and like it makes a really strong first impression. Like the basic premise is there's this anti-aging, a supposedly anti-aging drug called Eternights, and there was like some catastrophic leak across like around the world for it, and it's been turning people into monsters and zombies. All of a sudden, as this is happening, the day of, your kind of uh, almost silent protagonist. Like he does like voice clips, and there is and there's like an oddly like voice scene here and there for like major things. Um, as this catastrophe is like unfolding, he was like going on like this blind date because like his best friend Shawnee and him were like fiddling with dating apps, and like a girl reached out to him and he was gonna go on a blind date. Um, Obviously, as this went down, he got into the shelter, retreated to the shelter instead. With Chani. A few days later, they emerge from it to see if there are any survivors. They meet up with with two other girls, a popular pop star named Yuna, and then her other friend that kind of gets killed off right after, like very like a few moments later. There's like the first hour of the game.
That other girl that gets killed off, it kind of reminds me of that character from Chainsaw Man. Have you ever watched Chainsaw Man?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
The character
Yeah.
that's yeah, that's the reason why she gets killed off because she gets a nervous breakdown, just runs into the get killed right off.
Yeah, and then the whole objective of the game is you're taking this train to go travel to this lab to go basically beat up the evil god or deity or higher form of being that's kind of behind all of this mess. And then what's supporting you is another kind of like this higher being who gave you this uh, basically the power to kind of fight back against these monsters. And for you, that takes the form of earlier in the game, one of the primary antagonists. chops off your arm, just slices it off, and then you borrow the power of this good higher entity being to kind of make your what's the part of your arm that is sliced off. It's now replaced with like a new arm, but it's like pure energy now, so it can like transform to other things. So in battle, it transfers to like a sword, a great sword, and then like other weapons to like break barriers of enemies. Um, and then that's and then how the persona esque aspect of it works is in order to reach that lab from the train, there's like these two major walls, as in like physical walls that you have to get through in order to get there. So these walls act as like Persona 5's palaces, where once you reach that wall, you are given a deadline, like a certain amount of days. So like let's say like 11 days. You have 11 days to get this dungeon complete. You can get it done all in one day, or you can spread that out to throughout multiple days. But it's up to you, just like in the Persona games.
I was gonna say that sounds
Um,
familiar. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so and then whether you get it done immediately or get it done like almost a day of, like in that time frame, something will happen at the end of that dungeon where you have to like kind of wait till like the actual deadline, because a plot development will happen, and then it'll say, oh, like we need a certain amount of days for like basically this event, plot narrative event to happen for the plot to proceed. So like in that time frame, you have like the free time period where you can go level up your relationship links. You can go level up like your not level like you can get stat increases by doing very minor activities. So you know in this game, there's like obviously you can spend time with people to go level up your relationship with them. You can go scavenge out at night to go get them what they need, and then that'll get you both stat increases and like in this currency to invest in their skill nodes. Um, and then or if you just want to level up like your bond with them, like because you need to reach like a certain bond threshold to like get them like next relationship level up event. You can do that, and then that takes in the form of like a mini game, um, which is it's kind of, and that's kind of the flow of the game in that sense. Where you're usually at this dungeon, and then you can either do it all in one go, spread it out, and then in the meantime, during your free time when you're not doing that dungeon, you go do these other events. Um, in terms of combat, obviously the big divergence here from Persona is action and not turn based. And it's very, it's functional, it's basic, but it gets repetitive pretty fast because, like you have your standard light attack chain, you have your standard heavy attack chain. They all both have finishers. You have a dodge roll, and if you do a perfect dodge, it'll slow down time around you. And then you have abilities like sword abilities that you can fire off.
I was gonna say, do you mind I interrupt?
Yeah, go for it.
A lot of people compare this game to Scarlet Nexus. Is this? Well, I never played Scarlet Nexus
Mm,
before, so I don't know
no,
if there's a reference.
not really. So I'm about to get to that, right? I can see why they compare it, and it's like it's not really quite like Scarlet Nexus. So Scarlet Nexus, it was action RPG combat as well, but like the whole thing with Scarlet Nexus, like you're traveling with party members to go borrow their abilities in combat, and these they all have different abilities. Like one will make you go super fast, one will give you like a lightning property to your weapon, and you can like combine these together. So like you can like mix them up and have different synergies. And once the two parties in Scarlet Nexus come together, you get a lot of experimentation. Where like you can like borrow the ability of someone who can multiply themselves, then you can apply like lightning weapon to all of them, and then go like super fast or something. Like there's a lot of mix and match, and this game. So aside from these like sword abilities that you can do, which take up like a meter that you can like refill by perfect dodging, there as you progress to the game, you'll kind of meet these girls. Yuna's the first one, and then you'll meet Sai and Min shortly after. And these are your 3 other party members. The other girls that are with you, that are in your party, that can be in your party, are also romanceable as well. But their main function, is they're kind of effectively like magic spells. So as you're dealing damage, you're filling up this meter, and then once you fill up this like circular meter, you can do this ability called Elemental Fist, and you can choose 1 of 4 elements. So like your element is dark, Yuna is fire, Sai is ice, and Min is thunder. And all of the this game revolves around an elemental weakness system, where fire and ice are opposing, dark and lightning are opposing, and obviously your main goal is, when you do that elemental fist ability, is, hey, I want to target the weakness of this enemy. So you might be going, so you'll see you'll see the element of the enemy right by their health. So like if it's ice affinity, you want to use fire. And then when you use fire, not only will it do more damage, but it lets you do more follow-up attacks. So once Yuna uses fire on that ice enemy, then since you hit its weakness, you can go into go into a QTE sequence in which your main character does more damage. This is especially vital when an enemy, like a boss or an elite enemy, has a shield, because you won't do any damage to them at all until all of these shields are broken. So, like, an enemy can have up to 1 to 3 shields. So early in the game, when you're still only able to fire 1 magic spell consecutively, because you're still at low relationship ranks with the girls, if like an enemy has 2 or 3 shields, it gets pretty tiresome, because like you're not doing any damage. You're basically just waiting on the enemy to fill up this bar 2 to 3 times to break all their shields, and then you can do damage. And then eventually, when you level up their relationship ranks, they'll be able to cast their magic spells more consecutively, um, based off of like 1 elemental fist ability. So like, let's say I reach like rank 7 with Yuna, and I cast elemental fist to like make her fire off her fire spell. Since it's at that high, she can now cast fire 2 or 3 times in a row. So you're basically kind of making combat, less tedious as time goes on. But other than that, like, that's pretty much the entirety of combat. Is you're attacking, and most of the time, extended battles, you're attacking to fill up this circular gauge, to fire off a magic spell, to eventually do damage. And then as you're like breaking barriers, it'll do like QTE sequences of like your character breaking the barrier. And then there's like other, like, like a support abilities that your party members can do, like, healing up, like casting a barrier, slowing down enemies. But that's kind of where it is. Like, you pretty much have seen like everything the combat has to offer within, I don't know, like the first hour and a half or so, maybe first 2 hours, and then it's just rinse and repeat the whole game. And like that, like your typical battle strategy remains the same, which is you fish for attacks, because attacks are easy to perfect dodge. So you perfect dodge to get in safe attack strings, to fill up this meter, to cast magic, and then you do it again. You perfect dodge, you attack to fill up this meter, and then cast magic. And that's the entirety of combat. That's
It's
it.
it's a hard needle to thread sometimes, because you want the combat to progress so that it isn't, oh, I know how every encounter is going to play out from hour 1 to hour 20. But you'd also don't want it to be like where you're handicapped early on, or it feels like you've got these shackles on and you can't, the combat system hasn't opened up yet, and it's no fun until you get like these quality of life progression systems built into the game. So you want to make it feel like you're getting stronger, that you're getting more tools available to you, and this can be done through like equipment or party members, or ranking up your spells or whatever. But
But you don't have like an equipment, or like the only thing you're
right,
really doing is getting like these minor stat increases that build up over time. But that's not it's a pretty like linear, limited progression system.
yeah.
in the game. And there's like it's just a lot of little things like tack on. So it's like repetitive battles. It's like okay, then the lighting in this game is like it's purposely poor on purpose because there's like electricity is kind of shot that you travel a lot around of dark environments and the only lighting you get is like kind of dim lighting or like neon light neon signs kind of lighting up the area, but it's very very dark and to its detriment to the point that's like it's not really it tried to give like a some sort of horror element to it because these creatures or monsters are really like scary, but it for me it was more annoying because like I can't fucking see where I'm going. I have to like kind of hug the walls to see where I'm going. I have to kind of use my glowing arm as some sort of like shitty flashlight to sometimes know where I'm going. There are some spots in the game where I flat out didn't know how to progress because I didn't see like a staircase because it was in darkness. I'm like, okay, I guess. So like,
I'm in that same boat. I have trouble seeing here.
Yeah.
And crank up the brightness, man.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not. It's like it's just annoying. Even at max brightness, it's like it's still fucking dark. Um,
I like the
so
idea
that,
of playing it on PC and like just turning your gamma all the way up and be like, take that, developers.
yeah. So that wasn't great. And then I think the biggest like downfall of this game, and it's really hard to nail down, but it just sucks. Like this is definitely a game that you can tell that like Persona fans made and like kind of and but like but the script writing is just like it's kind of like almost wish fulfillment in an amateurish way, and it sucks, because I think in the first like the initial part of the game, it's like I think the writing was okay. Like at the initial part of the game, it kind of struck a nice balance between like the tension of the situation and like lighthearted humor aspects. But then it really, really starts leading into like kind of the lighthearted humor in a way that doesn't really make sense at like the whole situation that's going around them, and like it just has like weird like one of the examples I gave um in my piece on it is like after like the first dungeon that you beat, it's not, these aren't really big spoilers for the overall plot, just very very minor spoilers. On one sequence is there's a collapsing. As soon as you do what you need to do in the first dungeon, the environment starts collapsing. You, Chani, and Yuna are running out of there, and then there's a collapsing bridge. You guys didn't make it. You guys fall down. As you were falling down, they're like, "Oh shit! How are we gonna like live through the situation? We need to think of something." And so your character has a flashback, and the flashback was like like a few minutes, like at an earlier sequence of the game. He walked in on Yuna changing, so she's like, so she only had her bra on as she was like getting to like another, changing her clothes, and then that was a spark of inspiration. So he made a parachute out of Yuna's bra to save them, and it's like, you could have just like made up a parachute, just like a normal parachute. That's like just so that's so bizarre. That's your kind of solution out of it.
Did that scene actually happen in game? Like, as the player witness to that scene twice, they see the walk-in scene and then they see the flashback to the walk-in scene before it inspires.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's
Yep.
one of those things where it's like, I'm gonna write my substantiation for this wish fulfillment kind of scene, and you're gonna like it. And it's like, oh, okay,
It's like funny, but also it's just like this is, but it's also just like this is weird, and also like it just there's like such a weird like dissonance to like kind of make this that's why it was such a pivotal moment to influence that later on.
Yeah.
And there's like other like stuff in the game that's like kind of that's kind of that kind of spirit's kind of like littered all over the game, and it's like it's very hit or miss, usually more miss than hit in that regard. And it was like, okay, well, I don't know, I just feel like it just needed like another editing pass or like just it's weird, man. So I just like it for me. It's just like it kind of the tonal inconsistency in that game is very all over this. But I can see why people would like it if they like like kind of like the typical anime tropey sort of like plot progression and wish fulfillment and fan service in that regard. That's because there's a crowd for that. There's people who just want that, and that's okay with them, and they enjoy that, and that's totally fine. Some people will like it, some people won't, and that's all right. You know. So
I feel like this game kind of reminds me of those. Was it? Do you remember E-Bomb Worlds? That's a
Yeah.
very
Oh,
old
yeah, yeah. Oh
site.
God. Yeah. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of
You're
reminds me of
shitting
those like
us.
Flash games with the dating games that you
Oh
can
yeah.
play there.
Yes. Yes. Like Newgrounds and shit too.
Yeah, it reminds me of that kind of type of like the way that people
You're
talk
not
in this game.
wrong. Yeah. You're not, yeah. You're definitely not wrong. God
But
damn, that's a really good comparison. I forgot that you were playing it too, child. Like, how far did you get in?
like halfway in, I think. I
Uh,
think I was playing it as a joke, and I was like, okay, maybe it's not the worst thing ever. You
yeah, it's not the
know,
worst thing ever. It's like, what do you think of it?
I think it's all right. It's like I could see there's a charm to it, and I could
Hmm.
also see why people would like dislike it as well.
Yeah,
Like it's not gonna be for everybody,
yeah.
and that's not hurtful or anything. It's like I sort of had a fun time because the dialogue is kind of like my alley in a way. It's like
Yeah.
it's really like someone in high school wrote it or something. It'll be like random scenes like the characters, hey, it's like, do you remember what we did? Yeah, that part that we hid in our grandpa's attic. It's like, what do you want me to do? And you're like, close, like, get rid of it for him.
Yeah.
It's very childish. You won't see like something like that in like a mainstream title usually,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's very, yeah, you're right.
But
Yes. Yeah, yeah, you just have like really bizarre fucking dialogue choices in that game too. It's just,
yeah, it feel like you're like someone like in high school wrote it like as a trolling kind of thing, but it becomes serious later on. But
mm-hmm.
I'm just saying it's like it's not the worst thing ever. I think like I heard the game's pretty short too. It's like I have some friends that beat it in like 9 hours,
Yeah, it's right, 9 to 10 hours.
so they were like, I think it's like by the time the game's over before it outstates welcome. So
Yeah, I would say that because if it was like 3 walls instead of two, oh boy, it would
yes,
have.
there's some games that doesn't learn to end, and it feels like, oh my god, now it's like 150 hours.
I
Cough,
do.
Persona 5.
Yeah, yeah. Even though you have like the three romanceable roles, you also have like one romanceable dude. It's not Shawnee. It's another character that you meet in the game, and I do like him. I like Johan a lot. He's an interesting character. But he joins up more way later into the game to like the back half of the game, back third rather. But I do like him, and the girls are kind of like they're kind of all over the place.
So you wrote up a feature on the site for this game, but it
Mhm.
wasn't. You didn't score it, right? Because
It's not
it's kind
really
of
RPG. Yeah, it's
it's
like
more of an
hard
opinion
hardcore.
piece.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I mean, it could have easily been a review, but sometimes it's just like I cover games. It's not really strictly an RPG or like within our scope, so I put it under that branching path feature. Where it's more of an intimate opinion, I guess, of the game. So that's
yeah,
why people ask like, "Where's the score?" Dude, it's like, yeah, this is one of those things that's like kind of fell through the cracks for us.
it was also like not on Adam's like list, and a few people were like, "How come you don't have Eternights on the list?" It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah, I
well,
don't. What the
Be
fuck?
to be clear, they never really referred to it as an RPG. They always called it
Yeah,
dating action.
yeah, dating sim action. That we usually like. If anything, we probably we trust the developers to give us the genre
yeah,
that they're doing. Maybe and sometimes, but sometimes we do question it. Like there are definitely some developers like there's an RPG. You look at the trailer, it's like what? No, this
Yeah,
isn't. What are you talking about?
I don't see the RPG here.
Yeah, so that happens.
no, but thank you for giving us a look in at Eternights and what it does well, what it does maybe strangely, but kind of good to have a look in on that and from both you and a little bit from Chow. And then now that Adam's here, Adam, what we've been doing, we've just been giving 15, 20 minutes to a couple of the games that are released this week. So James went through the Pokemon DLC, Josh went through Eternights, and now, if you'd like, you have a chance here to talk about another release that you can talk about now, and that's The Legend of Nayuta.
Yep. So sorry I'm late. I just stayed up
No
way
worries.
too late last night playing Baldur's Gate 3, as you do.
Happens.
It's
Happens
okay.
to the
Yeah, it
best of us.
happens. Yeah, I know those nights.
So so coming out next week, I believe, is The Legend of Nayuta, Boundless Trails. Now, James talked about this like 6, 7 months ago, right?
Something like
When
that.
when he played the Japanese release on PC, and so if you're a regular listener to the podcast, you may have heard this already. But so, The Legend of Nayuta: Boundless Trails This is a Falcom title, so from the developers of the Trails series and the E series and so on and so forth. Now, we talked about this before, and I know that diehard Falcom fans are already well aware of this, but I know I have seen some confusion about like this game's a Trails game, right? Where does this fit in the timeline? And the answer is that it doesn't. It's not really a Trails game.
The
It
only
has
reason they call it a Trails game is the last time they released a ZY title, it almost bankrupted the company.
yeah, so this game is called in Japan, it is called Nayuta no Kaseki, but it's not really a Kaseki Trails title. But as James said, it's right. It's essentially the follow up and really the final title in that sort of Zwei uh, category. It is an action RPG platformer. It's got a lot of Zwei DNA. It's a little bit of Gurumin and a hint of like the sort of PSP 2000s era East as well, although not quite so actiony and flashy. More maybe leans a little bit more platformer than action. But yeah, so this is an action RPG that is stage based. So you're once you get through some of the I'll get to some of the premise stuff later, but once you get through some of the opening segments of the game, you're literally accessing stages from a map that's not too dissimilar from like Mario 3, like nodes on a map. So it's a stage-based game. You access these stages. They take like 5 to 10 minutes each. They're obviously shorter in the beginning, get a little longer as you go along. And you're going through these stages and you're fighting enemies in real time. There's a lot of uh, platforming, some puzzle elements, and things of that nature. So it is very different from like a Trails game. But I guess if you got confused thanks to the titling or the aesthetic or whatever, I guess it worked. The confusing titling worked.
That was
Uh,
kind of the point, right? A little bit.
Right, exactly. Like, getting people's attention, even though it's not really what they were maybe wondering if it was. Anyways, the premise. So the game itself takes place on Remnant Isle, and you play as the titular Nayuta. And this island has a strange phenomenon that takes place in that ruins fall from the sky, little star shards and other things, kind of mysterious things, and they're very weird. And these little star shards that fall from the sky when they're put under like a magical microscope that they have in the city there on Remnant Isle, it shows like images of like an other world. They call it, I forget exactly what they call it. It's like an Eden or something. They're like, we don't know where this place is, but we see glimpses of it. We see images of it. It's beautiful, but we don't know where it is. And Nayuta's parents were basically dedicated their life to finding this place. And Nayuta basically, who is now an orphan, his parents have passed away, is basically taken on the mantle of trying to find this place. And one fateful day, a gigantic ruin falls from the sky. Usually they're like little tiny meteorites that you could hold in your hand. But one day, a gigantic ruin falls from the sky. He goes to explore it, and he finds in that ruin a little fairy. She's about a foot tall. She's got pink hair, little pigtails, and her name is Noi. She's kind of in a lot of the key art for the game. And um, he basically, long story short, he kind of follows the fairy and he finds a way to the other world, but it's not in the best of states. And he basically needs to go through these two different guardians of this world to fix a gigantic contraption known as the astrolabe. And I'll kind of leave it at that for now. So you basically play as Nayuta and Noi kind of side by side. Nayuta has like either a one-handed sword or a two-handed sword. They have a slightly different attack combo where Noi sort of tags alongside as your fairy, and she does magic attacks from afar. So as you progress through um, the game, I'm trying to think, probably one of the most successful components of the game is that it has a very great progression to it, very great feedback loop, in that every level you do, you how do I put this? So when you go through each level, not only is the objective to get to the end of the level, but there's also a couple of different bonus things you do in each stage. One, you are searching out these 3 hidden purple crystals in each level. Literally, all they are just kind of like, little optional objectives on the side of the path on the side path is if you are able to find them, they're sometimes tucked away, sometimes there's a little mini puzzle to find them on a hidden route. You can find all 3 of them, and you get a star if you do that. And then if you find the treasure chest in the dungeon, you get another star. It's also hidden away. And also each level has a little bonus objective. So the bonus objective ranges from like deal so much damage with your magic, or kill so many enemies, or go through the stage fast enough, or don't take damage, or don't fall, and things like that. And if you do that, you get another star. And you basically turn in these stars to your master back on the island, and it's like a stamp book, and you progress through the game by turning in these stars, and he gives you new abilities, sometimes new equipment, sometimes new moves, like a dodging in the air, or sometimes like a different sort of blocking and things like that. And then each level also has you also get new equipment that raise your stats. You unlock new magic for Noi as you go through the stages. And really, overall, the game just has like a really great feedback loop. You always feel like you're getting something new. You always feel like you're getting a new ability, a new weapon. And the stages don't take that long to play through. It's a very nice pick up and play game, which a lot of that sort of 2000s era Falcom was. That you'll kind of get the hang of things in a matter of 10 minutes, very very quick. And so
Was
that's the
this
type of game
originally
it
a
is.
PSP game?
Yes, I didn't mention
Okay.
that. This game came out. I should have mentioned that earlier. I sort of assumed that people knew.
Well, that's
This
what I
game,
thought, but the way you were describing that nature of its pick up and play, like, yeah, that's based on
no,
like that.
it's just one of those things where I'm like, oh yeah, everyone's already aware that this game actually came out like 12 years ago, right? Like, no, I forgot. I mean, I didn't mention it. So yeah, this game originally released on PSP back in 2012, and so this is its first English language release in a remaster form. 10, 11 years later. So yes, this is a PSP game. So all of my mentions about it feeling like that era of Falcom, um, that's where kind of it stems from. But that's kind of the game is very charming. It's got that sort of light-hearted, adventure-y vibe. It's not like a super epic, dramatic, melodramatic, you know, game. It's got some dramatic maybe story sequences, which I'll get to in a moment. But otherwise, it's very charming. It's very lighthearted. It kind of feels like Guru Min, which is another Falcom title. Not quite so colorful and comfy as that, but that's kind of the feeling that it has. Now, in between the levels, there are some side quests that you can do at your main in the town on Remnant Isle. You basically are transferring between the stages and Remnant Isle in between each stage, and there are like quests you can do for the townspeople. There's like 25 total in the game, where sometimes it's just a little side story where you just have to talk to the NPCs in a certain order. Sometimes they might have you go to a certain level to find like some sort of secret objective. Sometimes it even leads to like a little optional like mini boss fight and things like that. And these side quests, they kind of reward you with the typical things: money, sometimes equipment, sometimes a new ability for Noi, and things like that. It does the place where this game does sort of feel like a Falcom or like a Trails game is that the NPCs in the town. There's maybe 10 of them, 12 of them, uh, and what they do change their dialogue very frequently. So it is, if you're the type of person who loves talking to NPCs and loves checking in on them and seeing like they're almost like these micro stories of the NPCs throughout the game, you can kind of after every plot beat, you can kind of just go back and see what they have to say. That's probably the one place where the game feels most like an actual Trails game, is that you have a lot of NPCs with changing dialogue, kind of in almost like a miniature version of all the different Trails NPCs that series is somewhat known for.
I forgot,
Now,
did this game have voice acting?
oh yeah, I
Yes, it
didn't
does.
mention it has
Japanese only
voice
though.
acting. No, this has English.
Okay,
Does it?
okay,
They
nice.
dubbed it?
Yes,
Nice.
it's
Okay.
yep.
Okay, I only
Now,
play the PSP version, so I wasn't sure they would kind of dub it.
yeah, it's not like the Crossbell games that didn't get a dub. They did dub this game, and the reason why they did probably is that there's not a lot of voice acting. It's one of those games. at least I played it with the English voices, and it only like the main scenes are dubbed, like not the NPCs, not usually, and only like main cutscenes are dubbed. So it's like a partial dub. I don't know. I'm assuming Japanese is maybe similar. Like I don't think
I
this is
think
a fully
so.
voiced game.
Yeah, I think that's the
I'm
case too.
I'm not sure, but I actually didn't hear a lot of the voice acting because I don't know what this says about me, but this game does have like a speed up feature.
Mm.
And I sort of just like played the cutscenes on like 1.5 speed. 'Cause that's how I play these games. And when you do that, it actually cuts out the voices. It just gives you the dialogue bubbles. And I'm old school. All I just need the dialogue bubbles. I'm reading the story. I'm not skipping it, but like I don't need to hear the voice actors say their lines. I can just read it. So that's what I did. So I didn't actually hear a lot of the voice acting. The little bits I did I did hear here and there was, seemed totally competent and fine. Not like absolutely stellar, but it's nice that it's there.
It's always
And
funny because like when people like I do those too with recent Falcom games. I usually just have that turbo up to like the highest speed. But it's always funny when my friend who speeds runs the Trails games like you have that turbo up feature. Whenever people walk in and they don't know they've never seen the speed up feature or like a Trails game, like all the cutscenes look janky and all the animations are all set up like is this how the game's supposed to look? It's like yeah, don't worry
yeah.
about it. It just looks crazy.
Anyways, the one part about this game that is probably the least disappointing is its actual story. It does
You
get a
mean
little bit,
you mean most disappointing or
yeah, the most disappointing. What did I say?
least disappointing?
Sorry, most disappointing, uh, is that the story, it's very unoriginal, it's kind of predictable. Now, the thing is it clearly doesn't place as much of an emphasis there as, a Trails game or even most story-based, like, RPGs. So, it's like, on one hand, it's there's nothing super interesting about the narrative. It's something you've seen before, it's kinda trite. It's not like actively poor, it's just kind of there's nothing to latch onto. It's just kinda
It
there.
sounds like it's just fine. It's fine.
Yeah, actually, I would say a notch less than fine. It is kinda
Okay.
like, oh, this villain and his
It's
motivation
okay.
I've seen 100 times before. It's very tropey, but the thing is that it's clearly not, like, the focus of the game. So, there's a little bit less emphasis there. There's not that many cutscenes. It's pretty light up until, like, maybe, I don't know, 70% of the way through the game. So, it's n so the story isn't very great, but the game doesn't place a lot of focus there anyway. So, do you get what I'm saying? It's just that's not really the reason to play this game.
It's just
If
more like a
you
foundation to like engage with like having
Yeah,
the game itself.
and now, like, for example, the game actually has this sort of seasonal, um, kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Theming to it, where there's 4 different, locations in the game, sort of like northwest, south, east, and then there's also 4 different seasons in the game, um, and each stage actually has a version of it for each of the different seasons that you can do for like optional objectives or kind of more difficult version of the stage or more points for your stamp card and things like that. uh, and it's kind of the story kind of fits that sort of formulaic, pro forma, overly structured architecture where it's like you have to get the 4 MacGuffins, you got to fit them in the 4 different spots, and it kind of feels very video gamey in that sense. Uh, I think Brian knows what I'm talking about in terms of how these
Yeah.
games sometimes kind of overly structure themselves to fit a perfectly coordinated 4 structure thing
Yeah,
here.
like they make it so that both the story and the gameplay is symmetrical in a way.
Right, exactly. Um, so it's kind of like that's just how it works. I was actually talking to a friend who played the PSP version, who loves the PSP version. They love it. They think it's an excellent game, and I told them like, yeah, only the story is poor, and they're like, I don't even remember what the story is. So that's kind of the point. They love the game, but the story doesn't matter. Um, and I'm kind of in that boat. I maybe am not. I scored the game an 8 out of 10. I think it's really good. I don't think it's like you know, I don't know if it would be in my, like, top 3 Falcom games, but it's, up there. It's maybe top 5, top 10. I don't know. I played a lot. So it's a good game. It's clearly the best in that Zwei kinda genre, that Zwei, I know it's not technically a Zwei game, but it pretty much is, and it's the most robust game in that style. It's got a great feedback loop. Very charming. The presentation is great considering it's a PSP game. Good music. Just kind of, as long as you go into the game kind of aware of what it is, I think you'll have a good time. I should also mention that the game is not super long. You can beat it in about 20 hours or less, including post game.
Is this like a full price release? What's the pricing on this game?
I think it's 50. So it's pretty, it's not fully priced, but let me see.
Yeah, I
I
forgot.
don't know. I don't know if the Steam page has a. Oh, I mean, the Steam page should have a price. I don't know if it's.
Let me go
you know-
check. That is
Oh,
40.
$40. Yeah.
40.
So it's not a full price game.
Okay.
I mean, you could still argue that $40 for a PSP game. It's like, come on, it's $40. That seems about apt.
I mean, the people are like there are gonna be people who like criticize this game because of dated visuals.
Yeah. So I've actually written about this, and I've said and I've stated this on the podcast before. I don't mind. Like, what's the alternative? That we just never get this game? I'm glad that companies like NIS America or Xseed sometimes will take a game that never got an English release, and hey, here's an English release finally. What are they supposed to
Yeah.
do?
I mean, yeah.
Like, it's
all
gonna
for it.
you as long as you go into this game understanding that yes, this game actually came out 12 years ago originally, and this is a remastered version of it. Uh, I actually think the PSP style models are pretty charming. It is sort of funny when it like pulls up like the highly detailed character art right next to the model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny, just like seeing the discrepancy there. But I think it's actually sort of cute because the characters are like slightly misshapen, being PSP models. But it's very colorful. The game is very colorful. The PC port is done by Durante. It doesn't have like the wealth of options that a lot of Durante PC ports have, and he's the guy behind the PC ports behind a lot of the East and Trails titles, if you're not aware. But it's rock solid. James played most of his playthrough on the Steam Deck, as he said,
Yep.
and it worked perfectly there. Obviously, you wouldn't really expect a remastered PSP game to have many issues with modern PCs, and it doesn't. It just doesn't have as many like options as you would normally see, but it's otherwise it runs perfectly well, no issues there. This
It's
is
also
actually one of
coming.
those. Go
It's
ahead.
also coming to PlayStation and Switch, or just Switch also, along with
PlayStation
PC.
and Switch.
Okay.
Yeah, PlayStation 4 and Switch, and those are both Falcom internal developed ports.
Yeah, because
So
they ported it to PS4 and then they also ported it to Switch. I think the Switch version was the first time Falcom themselves did a Switch release.
yeah, it was one of the very first ones. And so my point is that unlike Trails from Zero, there's not going to be some weird circumstance where in that case, in Trails from Zero's case, the Switch version is a much better port than the PS4 version because Durante did the Switch version of that game. But that's not the case for this one. So if you're playing this on console, shouldn't matter which version you get. Whichever one you prefer, they should be pretty much even. But yeah, good game. It's releasing in a hectic month. But if you're interested in it, it's not a very long game. It's the best of that style, like I said. Really good feedback loop. Just a very charming, lighthearted game.
Like the unfortunate like the games this month that I can't I just don't have time to get to is this game and Wandering Sword that also came out on PC.
I was actually telling myself, like, I don't need to play Lies of P, right? It's just another Souls-like. And then apparently it's one of the better kind of off-brand
Damn, I
Souls-likes.
need to get
I'm
through
like,
that
seen-
too.
too.
Yeah, I've seen people say that, like, I've seen multiple people say that this is the best non-FromSoft Souls-like, and it's like, I'm not
Oh.
sure if I'll agree with that, because Neo 2 exists, but I'm sure it'll be, like, at least as good as Neo 1, and that means it's gonna be a good time.
I need to like start making a list of like unfortunate things I couldn't get to in September that I need to. It's like Nayuta I've already played, but I played the original PSP version, so I definitely want to play that again. Wandering Sword, some of my friends have been playing it, and they've there's some like jank to it, but they seem to be liking it a lot. Been getting really good reviews on Steam as well. Like
The
really
Bait and
good feedback.
Kaitos remasters on
Big
Switch.
Kaitos remaster, yep, that came out this week as well.
That doesn't exist until it's on Steam.
That's true too. That's I kind of
Oh.
holding out for the PC version. If they like, it's not officially announced. We're just like crossing our fingers, and most likely it'll come to PC. And Lies of P. So that's man, September,
And
man.
as and the reason why I'm, like I said, the reason why I'm late to this podcast is like I gotta finish Baldur's Gate 3.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
really enjoying it though. I'm in the final act. Tangent, but I'm in the
Mhm.
final act, and it's just the final act is. I think like 10 hours ago, I thought like I'm near the end, right? And like, no, I probably have like 20 hours, 25 hours left, but it's been pretty good stuff. Like you know, it's longer than I expected, but I'm enjoying it. It doesn't feel like it's dragging. So that's always good. So,
Yeah, man.
but
I mean,
sometimes,
fucking.
sometimes with games like this, you're just like, just end already. And there's a hint of that here, but I feel like I'm still enjoying myself quite a lot. Even though there's more left than I expected.
I think a common sentiment at the end of the year is going to be like Larian Studios feels like they like pulled off the impossible this year.
Well, with Baldur's Gate 3, like I'm also like Adam and I have been pretty much playing it side by side, virtually anyway, and I'm also in Act 3. And there's areas where I remember like I had to pause on it, because I had that trip, and Act 3 there are some quests that are bugged, and there are some like things that aren't quite as polished as the stuff that had early access. And I don't want to say I
Yes.
don't care, but it feels like it doesn't affect my enjoyment because everything else is so well put together. But anyways, we've had plenty of opportunity to talk about Baldur's Gate 3, so I don't want to belabor that. But also, like, I still haven't. I've downloaded but have not booted up Starfield. I did finish Sea of Stars, Bait and Kaitos. I have no idea when I'm going to get to that. And then speaking of Lies of P, we did get a review up on the site, an RPG site. Josh Tolentino was able to cover this for us. And Adam, maybe you spoke to him more than I had. I don't know if he has a lot of experience playing these like sorts of like this genre of game, or if there's something off the cuff for him. But he enjoyed it quite a lot. So he basically spoke to that in his review up on the site, calling.
His takeaways are basically that like, first of all, the Pinocchio kind of element to it, he said, is extremely loose. It might as well it pretty much is its own story, just with a very loose Pinocchio kind of connection
It's
there.
almost like to like get like your attention at first. Like, how do we get everyone's
Right.
attention on it? Mention Pinocchio.
Yeah,
It's like, what the fuck?
if it was just not Pinocchio and it's just automatons in Europe or Italy or wherever it is, then it like no one would care or less people would care.
That's fucked up way to say. Let's talk about Steel Rising, Adam.
Yeah, no, I actually mentioned it to him that like this game is similar to Steel Rising. If I reviewed Steel Rising, I have not played Lies of P yet. Obviously, it's not out yet. But it seems like this is a more polished game. Steel Rising kind of had that. It was almost like a Eurojank Souls-like. It was okay, but this game seems more polished.
I think
But
it's
has a
Lies of.
similar. It just has a similar aesthetic
Yeah,
with the automatons in that century.
you're not wrong.
Europe.
Yeah, it's
So,
just kind of a weird coincidence. I think Lies of P is out, but like it's like an early access, expensive
early
edition
access, yeah.
type of deal. Yeah,
I hate that paradigm. It's out.
So-
It's out if you pre-ordered, or it's out if you paid extra, but not if you didn't. And it's like,
What's the company that first started this? Because I feel like they have a lot to account for.
I don't know if they started it, but SaGa had quite a number of those.
I'm thinking of like EA like a few years ago. Like I think they started messing around with that. I remember them being one of the earliest. I don't know if they were the ones, but I feel like EA started it some time ago.
I know that Square Enix tried to do something similar with Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Something similar. Maybe it was them.
I forgot if Atlus did this, but I still cannot. Like did Atlus do this SMT Nocturne's re-release, the expensive edition?
Nocturne. They did it with Persona 5 Strikers.
Yeah. The one with Nocturne just still cracks me up. It's like you could play this billion-year-old PS2 game early access, pay up. Like, okay.
Or you could just buy the PS2.
Don't say that. They're gonna get lawyers on you.
that's not allowed. And then also up on the site, we did get a follow-up interview with Sabotage Studios, who is the studio behind Sea of Stars. So this Paul Skrelly was able to put this together for us. So the review of the game we called it out also by Paul last week. So he got the opportunity to follow up with an interview with the developers as well.
It's worth mentioning once again, even though it's at the very top of that, there is spoilers for Sea of Stars there. So people have been getting mad at us because there's spoilers. They're just like, it's at the freaking top of the article. It does say there's spoilers.
Admittedly, we didn't say it in the tweet, but it's like when you click the link, you don't see any spoilers right away, but you do see a big spoiler warning. It's right there. It's always been there.
You gotta read. Ah.
Yeah. But yeah, this is the type of thing where the interview is kind of structured in a way in that it's like a debrief. You know, once you've beaten the game, bookmark the page. Once you've beaten it, you know, let's see what we had to say with the developer without having to be so cagey about what they can talk about. You know, it's full spoilers. Open.
I think
open
that
door.
makes sense, because otherwise it's just kind of like reverse marketing almost, where it's like we can't
Yes,
say anything
exactly.
specific, but we're just going to talk about how we're proud of the work we did, which of course they're allowed to be. But when you can actually go into this character, this plot beat, this detail, how this came together without having to avoid tiptoe around it, feels like it could be a lot more meaningful.
Yeah. So one sort of interesting thing about this interview, this is not a spoiler. This is the part that I found interesting is that the creative director's name, Thierry Boulanger, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, he's French Canadian, and growing up they only spoke French. And a lot of games that came out in North America at that time, they're not going to have French language. So he spoke French. He picks up Chrono Trigger. He even says in the interview, "We didn't speak English." They bought the game. He even thought the game was co-op because of the box art, the classic box art that shows Marl doing fire somehow.
Yeah, which you
But
can't even do.
yeah, but he played through the game not knowing really what was going on, but he just loved the aesthetic of it, the feel of it, the mechanics of it, and that's actually sort of what he says is kind of the vibe that he wanted to do with Sea of Stars. Now, there's cynical ways you can look at this, but he said it's a lot about the feel of the game, like a summer, you know, kind of a place you don't want to leave, mysterious things like that. And it actually, to a small extent, one thing that I might get flack for this, but to a small extent, this actually reminded me of Akatoshi Kawazu, who played games in English without like
Oh yeah,
Wizardry,
yeah.
without understanding them. And I just think that's kind of neat that it's like, even though you don't know in two different, very different, you know, cases here, you can pick up a game and play it and kind of enjoy it, you know, parts of it, components of it, without really understanding what's going on and just kind of going with the flow, kind of just with the mechanics of the game, the vibe of the game, even though you don't really know the dialogue or what's happening, you kind of just grasp it what you can. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Now you could argue, you could be cynical and be like, well, if he didn't understand the story, then why did he care? Or like, you know, he couldn't even tell if a game had a bad story or a good story. It's like that's not really the point.
Yeah, I
So
think it's like a lot. I feel like that spirit of that sentiment has been lost. I remember when I imported like Japanese PS1 games. You know, like in the Philippines, they kind of just really sold them and just pirated them on disc, and then they just kind of sold them at an absurdly like low price. Like some of them didn't have English language on them, and you know, obviously nothing fucking is localized in Filipino or in Tagalog rather. Um, and you know, and I didn't really have English understanding at that time, and I sure couldn't fucking speak or read Japanese. But you know, I still fucking played some PS1 games in Japanese, and like I just liked how it looked and how it played. And I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, but it was just like, man, this feels cool to play. You know,
That's
I
what I
enjoyed
did
it.
as a
Yeah,
kid. I did it with like Tales of Eternia. I beat the
yeah,
entire game somehow, and I fucking enjoyed it. And I couldn't understand a single fucking word.
yeah. So
no,
you know,
this isn't quite the same. Obviously, I'm an English speaking American, so most games that released here were English. But I did import because I was an idiot. I pirated uh, Fire Emblem Sacred Stones before I got an English release because I just wanted to play it. So I just pirated the Japanese version and just played it. And what's
Mhm.
sort of funny is that game, even without text, that game is so straightforward in its story. You pretty much know what's going on,
You can
even
kind of
without
glean
the
the
English
story
text.
like without being able to read a
Yeah.
damn thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So
But yeah, so we have the Liza P review up on the site. We've got the Legend of Nayuta Boundless Trails review. We've got the Eternights opinion feature. And then we've got the follow-up debrief for Sea of Stars. And of course, the Sea of Stars review just from last week is up there as well. Well, we've made it to the news section of the podcast in just a little over an hour. So that made pretty good time on the early section. So that works out pretty
Enough
well.
for Adam to get in here and be like, "Thank you, Adam.
Mhm.
You made it."
So obviously, like we said, the main two bundles of news came from the Nintendo Direct and the State of Play. We'll likely talk about the State of Play first because it has one, of course, very key, very obvious, likely in the thumbnail of this podcast topic that we want to talk about, and then a few other headlines, and then we'll go into the Nintendo Direct, which is a little bit more of a smorgasbord, some big surprises, another one that'll probably be in the thumbnail of this podcast. And then a few other little smaller announcements, indie announcements, release dates, and a few trailers for some already announced games. So, of course, the very first thing we're going to be talking about is the look in and release date announcement for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We got a long, like 3.5 minute trailer for the game. We got a PlayStation blog post. We got some comments from Tetsuya Nomura. We got some store page details from like the PlayStation Store. Yeah, gave it a little bit more. And then, of course, the trailer content itself. So, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. When I watched this trailer, the thing that kind of surprised me about this.
Hold on. Before you go into that, you should probably just lead with what people want to hear first. What is it releasing?
Oh, I'm sorry. It is releasing on February 29th, 2024, which they said winter. So I'm like, okay, I guess that's kind of as far out as you can get for like winter, but that checks out. So right
I
at
think
the end of
technically they could do it early March.
Also, can we appreciate that this is like one of who knows how many games that's releasing on a leap year day?
Yeah, it's that's funny. But
So when I
yeah,
when I
obviously, this only coming to PlayStation 5 right now. It's like a timed exclusive as well, just to remind people.
So when I watched the trailer for this, so the trailer is basically a combination of cinematics and gameplay with a lot of the voice acting clips from like cutscenes kind of like spliced in, which is a style of trailer I've never really liked, where you hear someone speaking and then the footage accompanying that vocal line is you have no idea if it's taking place at the same time or it's completely independent. But anyways, that's the sort of trailer it is. There's a lot of footage across a lot of familiar events. If you're familiar with Final Fantasy VII, I have kind of two comments when I first read this. When I first watched this trailer, is that one, I was kind of surprised how much I like recognized from. So I replayed Final Fantasy VII right before the first remake came out, and there are a ton of things to like recognize and be like, oh, I remember that. Oh yeah, that part or this nostalgic part. For the trailer, and there's not a lot else in terms of like there's always this tendency, we even saw it with the final Ever Crisis trailer, to like wink and nudge like, oh, there's something you don't know yet, or this thing's a bit different, isn't it? And there's a little bit of that, but they don't do a ton of that. I also do wonder though that like the way this trailer is formatted, if you are a newcomer to Final Fantasy with the remake series, I don't know how much it lands because it's a lot of like divorced, disconnected events. Where I might say like, oh, that's Junon, oh, that's the parade, oh, that's the golden saucer, but like other people are just like seeing things like, oh, that's a thing, that's a thing. Like I don't know if they get the same sort of thing, but I can't ever know what someone like this is kind of when I wish George was here, so that he could tell us what his impression is as a new starry-eyed Final Fantasy fan of what he thinks about this trailer. What do we think about it? I'll hand it off to Adam first.
I didn't watch the trailer.
Oh, okay. I'll rescind
Okay,
my
let me
hand off to
be
Adam.
clear. Let me be clear. So the reason why I didn't watch it is because I was at work, and as soon as I came home from work, I spent, I don't know, 8 hours catching up on like news posts and stuff. So I never had a chance to watch it. Sorry.
Also, you fell asleep.
Well, after that
All
I
right,
did.
all right, Josh. What do we think about the trailer?
I mean, I was one of those people. It's like, okay, and like I wasn't like when Rebirth first showed up his trailer, I was like, okay, sure. I was more like in the whatever. Like I'm definitely gonna buy it and play it because I played remake. I liked remake quite a bit. That's not like I don't like go over the moon for it, but I liked it a lot.
I
But
am
like
the over the moon guy. I thought this trailer was god tier, and
I should have handed off to Chow first.
I mean, yeah, but I'm talking about like my impressions of like
Right, go ahead.
remake of like I liked it, and then going to Rebirth, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll see, I'll definitely continue playing, obviously. But I think this game, this trailer, like really got me excited for it because it just showed off a lot more of like the game itself and what you're actually doing in the gameplay. Like we know it's gonna be more of an open world structure. We never gonna be traveling around. We knew that obviously we're gonna be able to ride chocobos and do like these combo attacks. You showed in the first trailer, but like just like seeing and recreating these memorable moments, like seeing Ketchi in the trailer, seeing their battle animations, their fucking gigantic Moogle, and then like the synergy of like Aerith feeding the big ass Moogle the energy balls to fire it from its fucking stomach, and then the the whole journey into the Golden Saucer, and seeing like almost like G bike or whatever the motorcycle battles, and then like seeing like a boxing mini game with like super high res HD reimaginings of like the blocky polygons from the original and seeing that recreated in it. And then you follow that up with like the scene with Tifa encountering a weapon, and then you see it with like the teasing the awakening of Vincent. And it's all thrown at you so fast, and you just can't be helped but like as a player who played the original, you can't help but feel starstruck because it gave you so much of like a mix of like what you remember, but also what's new, what's presented. It's like all prettied up as well. And it's hard. I can't imagine anyone who was like a fan of the original Final Fantasy VII to not at least be a little bit interested now after watching this trailer.
Well, some people still hate the remake.
Oh yeah,
Continue.
I mean for sure that like people still hate this like the remake of the but I imagine for a lot of people who played the original, you can't help but be at least a little bit interested, to be like, oh, that's interesting that like they're going like they're recreating this like this, or they're showing off like this. Oh, this looks really good like in this like new style, new this like in modern graphics. You know, I think that's the strength of the trailer. It just like it prevents you so much information and so fast that you can't help but like feel like it feels overwhelming, but like in a really good way because it gets you thinking as well.
In a lot of ways, it kind of feels like this is what people wanted to see like 4 years ago, 5 years ago,
Absolutely, that's
before
yeah.
all the details of like, oh, it's going to be 3 games. Oh, the first one's only going to go through Midgar. Like when they heard Final Fantasy VII is being remade, they wanted to see, exploring the overworld, chocobos, Vincent. Is he going to be optional this time or not? Who knows? We're gonna see like Ketchi and like the whole party, not just the 4 that you get in the original remake, and obviously just having an environment outside the steel environment of Midgar. So a lot of it feels like kind of like we've been waiting for this, and now we're finally kind of seeing glimpses of what was in our mind's eye half a decade ago.
Yeah, this is kind of like part of the reason why like I didn't like fall really super over the moon in love with remake is because by its very nature of like you being just a Midgard, it progresses pretty linearly. You can't really there's some side quests you can do some stuff, but you're pretty railroaded like
Yeah.
throughout it, and not like it's understandable why, but it's like it's definitely you're kind of going through the motions, and it was nice like seeing it, like revisiting it, but a lot of what I really like about FF7 is not in the Midgar section of the game. It's everything that comes kind of after it. Once you get access to the open world and seeing where does the journey take us next. Those are the things about FF7 that I really think to a lot. Is that sense of adventure of like seeing how does the story develop from here, and like having remake and at right before where the stuff that I was interested in got to there, like it felt like a big bummer for you. It's like, oh fuck, I have to wait for God knows how long for the next part.
Or
And now
another
here it
5
is.
years.
Yeah, and now here it is, and like this all looks really, really fun to me. You see a chocobo scaling a wall vertically. You see it flying, and
You see Red 13 riding a flying chocobo, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing, the Red 13 stuff. It's like, how can you like? I can understand not liking the games, but how can you look at them having Red 13 riding a chocobo like a person holding the reins in his paws and be like, oh yeah, the remakes are soulless? It's like, what? No.
Wait, I think I have a question for you guys, or at least for James. What is your impression of remake as someone that never played OG FF7 before?
Chow, I've played FF7 now.
The OG version?
Yeah, I've gone through it.
I thought you never did. I thought you just stopped there because you were doing this ritual perspective replay, and you just got to 6, and then 7 got out of the way because there was too much of your backlog or something.
No, I got back to it.
Damn, I thought you'd be a remix only guy like George.
Or George.
Okay, sorry guys.
Doesn't
Guess
even
I
know
was
what
wrong.
But yeah, I mean, so like this is just a really, really solid trailer. You see, like it was the whole footage with Cloud and Sephiroth in the flashback, and
Oh
it's
man, the pretty boys and their BLs.
it's really just a sight to see, and like having a playable Sephiroth, and yeah, and then you just see some bizarre parts of the trailer. It's like, who the fuck thought like Cloud riding a Segway? It's like, I guess sure.
Oh, I forgot even to mention that. Yeah, Cloud's on a Segway.
Yeah, it's like, what? Who thought up of this? What? That's
It's
crazy.
brilliant. That idea's fucking brilliant. Okay.
I mean, it's great. Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's stupid, but it's like harmless. But it's so bizarre.
I still love it in the FF7 world. No one seems to question that big ass sword that he's carrying.
You know,
It's just like, it seems like the norm.
And there's still so many questions to like. Obviously this is going to be different by nature. Like you see Zack. Obviously Zack was shown at the end of very end of remake. Then now you see him like really kind of almost front and center here. It's like what? How? Like it's just a lot of man. This is gonna go places, I guess. So I'm excited. This trailer really did a lot for the game for me to like like get excitement up, being interested in it. And if it was like if they released like a trailer that was like similar to the last like the revealed like the first trailer, I would have been really bummed because this is the kind of trailer I kind of wanted to see, of like seeing just a lot of gameplay, and what you can expect to play in the game.
It's a sort of trailer where when Nomura says, "Yeah, you're gonna have 100 hours of things to do," you're like, "Yeah, I believe it."
Yeah,
Where like if they ever said that for the first game, which they never did, it's like how do you get? I remember they even said like, how do you get 30 hours out of Midgard? And they made it work. It's like, how do you get 100 hours out of the first continent or up till the Forgotten Capital? Like, yeah, I can see that based on everything they've shown in the trailer. I can see them packing that, new side quests, kind of repackaging old ones. I know people who have like really like line by line the trailer have noticed a few small discrepancies. Like I guess like it shows Cloud and Sephiroth in what is purportedly the flashback are fighting the Materia Keeper, which that's not where the Materia Keeper fought in the original, but that's fine. There's this one part where there's plenty of dialogue about all the hooded characters and the concept of reunion. But there's one where there's like a person dressed up in a similar garb with like a reddish beard, and it's like not clear who it is. I think I was watching the Final Fantasy Union like trailer breakdown. They're a good site. You should check them out. And they're like, people have speculated who this might be. It might be an original character. It might be Glenn from the first Soldier. And I'm like, please don't be Glenn.
Oh man, is that how they forced you to play First Soldier?
My new favorite FF7 character, Glenn.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think if there's anything else in the trailer. Like it avoids anything to do with whispers. All the moments that it shows Sephiroth in the trailer seems to be like Sephiroth, at least in the way it's framed, as he was in the original game, not like meta Sephiroth knows everything of like the later games. Like it's Sephiroth questioning who he is, if he's even human. Sephiroth are in the flashback.
Yeah, they showed the buggy, like guess what?
Yeah.
The buggy's back. It's like fuck yeah. it's like
Too
that's
bad
awesome.
you don't get to fight Ruby Weapon with it this time.
We'll see. And And then they showed off some of the new like returning summons. They're not entirely new. You see Odin. You saw
Alexander.
Xander. Xander looks really good.
And they've already
yeah.
kind of like reordered when you get the summons. Like you don't get Ifrit until like the ship in the base game, but you get it from Jesse in the first game, just like, oh, here's Ifrit. Oh, what? No, it's not
It's
from
like,
Jesse. I don't remember.
No,
You get it.
don't you get the summons from Chadley?
Oh
you
yeah.
get you get Ifrit from Jesse, and then the additional summons you get through well, most of them you get through Chadley because you have to do the fights, but like you do get Ifrit from Jesse in
Yeah,
Rebirth.
and like all the summon acquisition's kind of out of whack, but that makes sense because otherwise you like wouldn't get any in the first game, and they want to have that.
There was was one of the summons DLC? Was it like the Choco?
What I saw, yeah, for the original game, yeah, you get the Choco Kid and the Mog, but there I saw a store listing where like if you've got save data on your PlayStation for Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, you get Leviathan and Rama, and to me that's like, oh, that's a pretty big, well, it's one of those things like that's a big thing to lock away behind a save file check, but also
is that like that's
I don't think that's too big of a deal because
no, but I'm trying to think. It's like, is there any other way to obtain or reobtain them?
yeah, I don't know if it's just
Well-
like you get them early.
Yeah.
Well, here's a slightly weird thing is that I played Intergrade on PC and not PS5.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like if I want to play Rebirth on PS5, even though I did play Intergrade, I don't get those summons because I don't have a PS5 save.
I'm in
Yeah.
this awkward position where my save is on the PS4 version. I don't have PS
Yeah.
Plus, so how could I transfer my
Adam,
save?
Adam, good news. If you're fine with getting Rebirth digitally on PS5, you get a copy of Remake plus Intergrade for free.
Yeah,
yeah.
my friend also joked about that. They're like, if I wait till part 3, then the first 2 parts are free, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if you've got Remake on PS4 or PS5, you get Leviathan, a save file. I don't know if that just means you can just like get the free version, start a basic save file a minute in, and then that counts.
Yeah. That
And
should
then
count.
Intermission, of course, is only on PS5. You get Rama, and I don't know if it's like it's probably a very very small sliver of people that would ever play Rebirth without any PS5 save data. I guess that would be someone who waited till PC, loved the game so much, and then want to play it day one on PS5 for Rebirth. So, maybe just strange pre-order, but ultimately harmless, I suppose. And I wouldn't be surprised if you can acquire them later in the game if you don't have the save data.
There were additional details thanks to a pretty comprehensive interview from on PlayStation blog about FF7 Rebirth. They revealed that the Rebirth does end at the Forgotten Capital. Which is kind of it gets the noggin thinking. Like it's like, oh, that's interesting. Are they? And then a lot of people, of course, are like, are they going to end it there? That's fucked up, for people who played the original FF7. That Nomura also says like the order in which you can explore the locations is not the same as the original FF7. And here are some shifts in the order. For example, Wutai, one of the major locations, is not part of the route in FF7 Rebirth, and will be visited in the next one. So,
that kind of makes sense because it was
that's interesting because in the original FF7, Wutai stuff is that all completely optional? Like every time I play FF7, I always
It's
did it.
optional.
I'm wondering, you don't have to do any
completely
of it.
skip it.
Right.
I hate
So
doing that.
I'm curious how they incorporate it, like as a more of a actually part of the front to back narrative now. Like
Yeah,
who knows?
and Alex mentioned like in the original FF7, the Wutai stuff is like well before the Forgotten Capital, but now they're reordering it, so
Right.
all that stuff is after the Forgotten Capital of the next game.
I feel like they want to skip it to the next game so it resolves the Don Cornelio plot arc because he's like the main villain that part. If you remember, so at least that's how I see it.
I'm also trying to remember, like, if I remember right, you can get Yuffie before the Golden Saucer, but it's very rare to get her that early because the percent chance of encountering her is low or something like that. I forget exactly how it works, but of course, in
The
this
chance
game,
goes higher till region. Like the first region, it's like very low. It's like 10% to encounter her,
right?
and then it gets higher and higher as you progress through the game later on. I think
I remember
30%.
one of the hardest things to do in the original game was to get the golden saucer date scene with Yuffie. Because you have to like get her early, you have to like not be nice to Tifa or Aerith, you don't, and whatever, you have to get out of doing the default one with Barrett. But of course, in this one, it shows that she's with the party ostensibly from early on in the game.
Yeah, it looks like Yuffie must join like right away.
Yeah,
So-
it's like I'd be very surprised if it was like 2 hours in and she's not already with you.
Well,
Mhm.
I think Intergrade ends with her basically leaving Midgar, and then or the intermission, excuse me, and then we all know that FF7 remake ends with them leaving Midgar, so maybe they just like bump into each other right
If
away.
I remember right, it shows her leaving Midgar, and then there's like one tiny follow-up scene with the main cast, also like on the road outside Midgar. So they're kind of
they like take a truck with like Chocobo Bill or something.
Yeah, and so it's like it's basically showing that their paths are just about to collide. So.
Now, I wonder how Zach is going to work on all this. I
Yeah.
mean, that's obviously a big question mark. So we
Yeah.
saw him. We last see him at the church. So who knows where he ends up after that?
I feel like he's in that world where they spoiled you in the trailer where everyone's dead, and then it's like
I mean, they've kind of gone like, they don't spoilers anymore. Like Zach is around. He's here. They literally have like a character art and a bust art for him. It's like he's going to be around.
He's in the
probably a
key art.
playable
He's like on the box
character.
art. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's on
Yeah.
the key art. Yeah, I forgot about
Yeah.
that.
He's,
Yeah, so
he's,
he's
he's
there.
carrying Cloud around too.
Oh, and he drops
Yeah.
off Cloud like
Yeah.
reportedly when they get out of when he drags went to Midgar or wait no, yeah, and he drops Cloud off with Kyrie, which is like that original character from the remake who was actually originally from one of the like novelizations. So she's involved somehow. Like I knew Cloud before we knew that she knew Cloud. It's there. I guess there is a bit of wiggle room in terms of like what are the order of events now. This is technically a sequel, etc. All that stuff, and that's I guess what Nomura does so well. Keeps you
I have a
guessing.
question. Did anybody see Reno in any of the trailers of the remake?
Reno.
They show him like I remember they showed the Turks in the first trailer.
Yeah.
So
They showed Elena.
Yeah,
They didn't show like Reno talking or anything.
I don't know. I don't know about. I don't know if they showed Reno and Rebirth at all.
Because this Japanese voice actor passed away like just kind of like a year after remake came out. I'm not sure if they like recast him or just cut his role short because of it. Like his. In Japan, it takes a while for them to replace like JPVAs. It has to be like that contract's locked for life. I think they probably even want to cancel Cloud's VA because of all the cheating affairs that he's been doing, like the Japanese Cloud voice actor. I'm not sure if they.
We'll see. I don't know. The PlayStation blog does go into like a few more the minute gameplay details that we don't have to go through here, but they just said since Red 13 is fully playable now, like their unique gameplay mechanic or gimmick is a revenge meter. So as you're guarding, this revenge meter will fill up, can fire off attacks like powerful attacks.
It needs its dice.
Yeah. I guess what was the thing I forgot to mention here? That was from the interview. I forgot now. I had it with me, and then I forgot. I don't know. I don't remember. I'll remember it like in 5 minutes. Fuck.
Yeah. Rip.
Yep.
Yeah, I was pulling up the Summer Games Fest trailer to see. It shows Rude and it shows Elena. Does not look like it shows Reno. I'm trying to remember if Reno shows up in the mid for mines or not. I don't remember.
Maybe they just cut his role a little bit short until they find the right recast for him.
There's just careful trailer editing. Yeah. So. All right, I think did we cover? The last thing we forgot to cover here, the last headline, is that alongside this, Square Enix did announce that Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade have sold over 7 million copies worldwide, which is a nice kind of tidy number for this game.
That's a good number, congrats on reaching that. And we'll see how much Rebirth sells. I mean, that's always the weird things with sequels; they always sell less.
So my question is, it's like if you see the trailer, it says what is it? It's not available till other formats till May 29th. It's like, do you think someone's gonna have that exclusive longer than that. Get that PC version
I
longer.
imagine
Oh.
I imagine they're itching at the bit to get out the PC version of this before the end of the year next year. I'd have to imagine.
How
I don't know,
far
they're waiting.
after the original game did it come out on PC? It was way later than
It
that.
took
That's
Yeah,
a,
it was way
a
later.
long time. It took a
because
while.
it went to it was PS4 in like March 2020, and then it came to PS5, and then it came to Epic Games, which is sort of PC, and then Steam. So it took a
wow.
while.
There's
Is
nothing
that
wrong with what they do.
yeah, like the pictures, like yeah, like little fine for not available on other formats at least until May 29th, 2024.
Well,
It's like they only
that's
signed up
been
for a
like
3-month exclusivity this time.
that's been it's been kind of Square Enix's MO regardless of the well, I guess not just Square Enix. It's kind of everyone. It's exclusive trailer announcements for like Yakuza and Atlus stuff, and Square Enix partnering with Sony for their exclusivity windows, trying to get those double dippers and things like that. Yeah, it seems to
Oh,
be working for them.
I remember what I was going to mention. They also mentioned in an interview that similar to Red 13 in Remake, how Red 13 was like a non-playable character, but like more like a support character to participate in battle. They said there's still some characters in Rebirth are still gonna do that, where like they'll join the party but not like officially fully playable until the next title,
I
whatever
wonder
that
if
means.
that's someone like Zach. I don't know.
I was thinking
Yeah.
like Sid. But
Yeah, if it's Sid or Vincent, that's really weird because they show
Vincent's
up.
weird because you get him
Yeah,
relatively.
yeah.
Doesn't take him that long to get Vincent.
Yeah,
So.
because like Sid and Vincent are pretty much locked in for quite a good chunk before Forgotten Capital. So that'd be
Yeah,
very weird if they were not fully playable. You just stare at them for however many hours till the game ends.
some
You know?
people got really angry hearing that, but I feel like it might be a character that comes in way too late, maybe.
Well, I mean, yeah. If they introduce Sid or Vincent somehow right before the game ends, if you reorder events, that wouldn't. I mean, it makes sense to do that for them, but that wouldn't make sense like in the actual storyline, to do
Like what
that.
happens is not one of them. It's not like someone from OG
Yeah,
episode.
yeah. I'm thinking if it can't be Sid or Vincent, because if it's Sid or Vincent, then that'd be really disappointing. But yeah, if it's someone like Zach, for example, like I can see that depending on what they do. Um, so yeah, I'm not a big fan of them doing that mechanic again. Like it was okay the first time. It was like okay, I get it. Doing it again, I guess
It would have
depends.
been in remake. It would have been sort of weird to have like a fully fledged Red 13
Yeah,
with like the same weapon system that all the other characters have for only like that last section of the game. That would have
yeah,
been a little bit awkward. So I understand why they did it that way.
yeah. So, but we'll see what they do in Rebirth. It's I feel just around the corner now, really. So that's February. You have Relink, Grand Blue Relink,
Free
Persona 3
Reload.
Reload, and then at the very end of that month, Rebirth. So easy enough. Just 3 long ass RPGs.
And then just like a week after that, you get Unicorn
So-
Overlord.
Well, here's the
get to
thing.
that.
We still don't know for sure, but Dragon's Dogma 2 is coming.
Yeah, I don't want that to come out in February. January, thumbs up. Avoid February. Like I'm thinking
There's
like
also-
mid March, late March, I guess.
There's
I-
also a lot of rumors about Monster Hunter being
I just find it
closer than we
hilarious.
expect.
I know people keep saying they expect Monster Hunter, but I'm gonna be honest. No, we would have heard about it already if it was going to be an early 2024 release. It's probably going to be the holiday title. So
That's what we said with Dragon's Dogma 2's trailer. It's like if they were making it, they would have showed a trailer already.
No,
And then
well,
boom, it just
they'll
came
release,
out of
okay,
nowhere.
fine, Chad. They'll release it next month, right next month. Dragon's Dogma 2.
Okay.
Okay.
Also showing up at the State of Play, we'll wrap up the State of Play, then go into the Nintendo Direct. This was one that was like rumored, like the usual suspects started being kind of chatty, right? The weeks leading up to the State of Play, and that is the somewhat surprising announcement of a follow-up DLC to Tales of Arise. So of course, Tales of Arise released about 2 years ago exactly, released in September of 2021, and the DLC is called Tales of Arise Beyond the Dawn. The game sorry. It shows like basically a new chapter of Tales of Arise takes place about a year after the original game. The trailers in both Japanese and English featuring a new character is kind of what this centers around. And other than that, it doesn't really give like we have a press release that has like 2 paragraphs, but one paragraph is just mostly just like PR fluff, and the other paragraph basically says like Alphen and the rest of the 6 are caught between worlds as they are the heroes of both Dana and Rena, but now they meet a young girl named Nazamil, who is the daughter of both a Renan Lord and a Danin, and then like she's cursed in some way and the worlds are starting to merge or something like that. It's very kind of nebulous. And then the trailer spends a lot of time using like their attack animations to kind of fill out the cinematography of the trailer. I thought was kind of
Yeah, it's kind of
interesting.
awkward.
Like oh, I remember seeing this like a few dozen times as I played through the game, seeing like Kisara swing her big shield around and Dohalim doing his like attacks. But this is kind of like a nice surprise. So I don't know in terms of like where they can go with the story, if this is going to be completely standalone.
No, there's not they've already mentioned that you need the base Tales of Arise game to play this game. It is not standalone. You cannot buy it separately. You need the base game to access this.
Well, I meant like if the story like
Oh.
I'm trying to think of if there was like a lot of loose threads, but I remember
No,
like
there's
Not
not
really. It's pretty conclusively. So
yeah, I mean you end up fighting like what this. I don't want to spoil. You fight like this nebulous
Okay, I will spoil
concept.
it. I will
Okay,
spoil it.
thank
I'm
you,
going
Adam.
to
Take the
spoil
vote.
it. The final boss of that game is just like this sort of semi-sentient planet that just like absorbs the other planet, and you're like, we
It's
have
like
to
the
stop
spirit
the
of the world.
planet.
yeah.
It's being
And
bad.
then that like other dude, just kind of like who's not really the villain, he's just kind of a crazy guy, just kind of shows up and he's like, I want to fight you, and you beat him up too.
Yeah. It's like okay.
So,
Oh, not
he's not even like
Sephiroth.
the villain. I don't even. What's his name?
I don't,
Anyone remember his name?
the
I
Fifth
don't
Lord
remember.
dude who's like Sephiroth but
Yeah,
not Sephiroth.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm blanking on his name.
I don't
I want
remember.
to say it starts with a V, but I don't remember.
Tales of
Yeah.
Arise antagonists.
They're never memorable.
I don't know. It's just like this is kind of largely whatever. I think
Volran.
great.
Volran.
There's like just weird small details about this show that also kind of like bug me too. It's like it's a year after and everyone's still in their same clothes. Really?
Mhm.
They're still in the same outfits?
Yeah,
Like-
I noticed that. Like, you just wear the same outfit for a year. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Like Kasar, I remember Kasar had an awesome fucking outfit at the end credits, like ending illustration, and she was like fishing. I was like, holy shit, that's awesome. But I kind of hope like it's a year later, you should probably update the character at least your main character's looks. Like
I
show
wonder how
show that
cheap this is gonna feel. Like,
exactly. Like show that like some time has progressed. It feels like you're just caught off like the end of like the last game, and aside from a new character model, everything kind of looks the same.
now,
Also, one thing I forgot
like
to
how the new
say.
character. I like how the new character has like dichromat eyes.
I feel
Because
like it's
they're half Renin,
overused.
half Danin.
Oh,
That's how eyes work, right, guys? If you're
Yeah,
half from one
definitely.
planet, half from another
Yep.
planet, you're gonna have mixed eyes.
Oh,
Obviously.
that's what Final Fantasy X told me. That's what I
Yeah,
learned.
that's apparently how genes work.
So I mean, it's just I don't know if I'm gonna play this. I honestly don't know if I'm gonna play this.
Well, the thing I was going to mention is it's coming out November 9th. So it's like
Yeah.
2 months away. Which is kind of fun. It's a fun surprise, but it's like, oh, I don't know if I
Right
need to like
after Star Ocean, right? Was that when like I think it's the same day that like a Dragon Gaiden comes out. So right in that mix of things.
I don't know. Like someone will have to give you a pretty compelling argument that I should play this. I guess.
Honestly, the most compelling argument to me is that it's they say like 20 hours. Like, okay, that's
Yeah.
relatively
a
short.
brief 20 hours.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That might be the most compelling thing. It's like you won't fucking waste your time at least going through this. It's like okay.
I'm sure this is going to be better than the Tales of Systeria DLC. That one left some sequel bait, which because it wasn't popular enough, it never had a proper conclusion.
Also,
even
the
remember what
Tales of
happened there.
Zestiria DLC, the Tales of Zestiria DLC, I remember it. Do you remember in Tales of Zestiria? Tales is weird at this point. They
Mhm.
have those, I think they're called cauldrons, where you basically go into like this cauldron dungeon and it's just like a wave-based
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
cutscenes,
yeah.
they
I
were
remember.
very
Fuck.
awkward. They were very weird, and the
Uh,
DLC is basically just like that. It's
mhm.
just like you play you get the girl back. I forget her name. Alice,
Alicia.
Rose and
Alicia. No,
Alicia.
not Alicia. And like you just do these like wave-based battles a bunch. I know that was a significant portion of the DLC. It was very weird. But
I
They
hope
should
they don't
bring
give
it
it
back
that
for
back.
Beyond the Dawn. There you go. Let's get a call back.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad. Like oh, and this new thing was announced. We're all kind of very very tepid on it. But the trailer
I don't
didn't
like Tales of
really.
Arise. I already told you I don't like Tales of Arise. I'm okay with shitting on it every day.
Yeah, okay.
All right, it's not the worst thing ever. I mean,
So-
It looks pretty,
it's-
I guess.
at least it's not Tales of the Tempest. I'm sure nobody played that.
But I kind of touched it and I was like, this is good. That's not a fun game.
And then the last thing that showed up in our wheelhouse in the state of play is that Honkai Star Rail will be launching for PlayStation 5 on October 11th.
Right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
Damn.
Uh,
What else I'm supposed to say about it? I don't know what comes in the PS5 version.
do you play on any of these on PS5, Chow, or are you just PC?
I tried Genshin on the PS5, and it wants me to like my account. It's like, what happens? I get bored of the game and want to get rid of my account. It's like now you're stuck with the PSN life cycle. So I'm like, nope, I refuse to link it. So I would never touch
Okay.
it on PlayStation for that reason.
And with that, we'll go over into the Nintendo Direct, which had a much larger list of headlines. So we're going to go through here and figure out which one of these we want to talk about at length and which one of these we'll make sure we cover and then move on. Here's one that's probably exciting for longtime listeners or followers of the site, and something that we were expecting to hear at some point, though I don't know if you're expecting to hear it specifically at this point, and that is the announcement of a new SaGa game. We got the announcement, trailer, and initial, screenshots, marketing, PR, everything for SaGa Emerald Beyond, coming out for PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, PC, and mobile. So this is going to be coming out in 2024, and it is to, I think, most of our sites, delight.
we go Gaga for Saga.
I told
yeah.
you, man, the next Saga game's gonna be after a different color, and it was green. I guessed it right. There was a podcast episode that said that.
I mean,
Well, we also kind of already knew that because they
this-
trademarked it.
yeah, this trademark has been out for like almost a year. It feels like.
Mhm.
I'm very excited for this because it looks like it's first off, it's building off of the Scarlet Grace framework, which good.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
and like it was already fantastic in the fact that they're like building on top of it. I also love how it's like very clearly going for like a Saga Frontier, like sci-fi aesthetic. That's really cool. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah,
I'm terrified. I am absolutely terrified. Scarlet Grace ran on Unity. This is a Unity game that.
We'll get to that, I guess,
Well,
at some point in the podcast.
It won't meet the threshold sales. It's okay.
Damn, rip.
Yeah.
But man, I love how they describe everybody's background in this. What was that one? The songstress where her soul is trapped in a robot or something?
And I've seen a lot of love for the like cop detective
The cop,
duo.
yeah,
It's
the
like a
Bonnie and Fermina.
cowgirl and the girl
Yeah.
with a hijab.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of love for both of those characters. I
Yeah.
mean, just their designs.
I think I really like Saga Scarlet Grace a lot. I love it. This is but like some of the characters in Saga Scarlet Grace, I was kind of like at first initial impression. I eventually I'm fine with them. But this one, like out of the gate, I like all of like the characters that they showed off for Emerald Beyond are like really interesting, compelling, both in design and like their premises. Like it's just kind of firing on all cylinders from the get go for me.
I remember seeing like some people. There was a similar reaction when Scarlet Grace was first brought over to the West a few years after it released in the East. About wait, that's what it looks like. That's the art, and then I saw, to our credit, like everyone be like, it's all killer, no filler. Don't worry about it. Like the battle system's immaculate. The art is what it is. By the time you get like a couple hours into this game, it's like that's the last thing on your mind, just because these games are just so compelling. And I think it's crazy that they have even more protagonists to pick from here, because I'm trying to let me like pull up my Steam account. I only ever played through Scarlet Grace with one character, and it still took me like a damn long time. Let's see if I can. Took me 51 hours to play through Scarlet Grace with one character.
Which route did you take? Did you take
The
Alpina's?
the blonde
Or
dude,
Urpina? Oh no, Leonardo.
Leonardo. Yeah, that's what it was. So, some of that might be idle time, but still, it's not a short game. Like even though it has multiple characters.
Let me see. I got 100% in Scarlet Grace. Or
I
yeah, let
don't.
me see.
I
What
want to
a
hear.
chat.
I want to hear this
Uh,
number. It's
This guy.
520 hours.
286.
Damn.
Let's go.
Real Chad.
Hey, that fight against the ultimate Flamebringer or whatever. That's Flamebringer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
tough as nails.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're listening to the podcast, what you should understand is that next year's Game Gear cast, this game is gonna be a front runner for most of us.
Unless
Probably.
it's somehow really disappointing.
Yeah,
Like,
there's always potential for that. But the nice thing is like the battle system looks to be building off of like was in Scarlet Grace, and that's kind of the big point for a lot of us. With Scarlet Grace is like it has one of the best turn-based battle systems. Yeah, because it really made every turn matter, and
the one thing that this game seems to be doing differently, the Scarlet Grace was like on like a sort of it was a world map that was sort of segmented, almost a little bit board game-ish, where each segment of the map had like a different story kind of to it, kind of like these little mini micro things going on in each section of the map. This game promises like 17 different worlds.
Yeah.
And so might be like weird gimmicks or aesthetics or variety in these different worlds that you're jumping between. So there's like a robot world, there's like a future world.
there's a lot of variety in the environments that they've already shown the screenshots in the trailer too.
Now,
It's just
James mentioned Saga Frontier, but some of the earlier Saga games also had this weird mismatch of like robots and more fantasy and things like that
I think
too.
the Game Boy games had that kind of thing.
Saga 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Saga 1 didn't have. Did Saga 1 have robots? I don't think so.
I think it
Saga
had
2 did for
monsters
sure.
that you joined.
Saga 2 did for sure. Yeah. But yeah, it's very. I actually kind of like. I don't know. I kind of like the sort of garish color design of these games. I don't know why.
I've gotten used to it to the point that it's just charming to me now. Like when I saw this, I'm like, man, I'm so back.
I feel like it's like for me, it feels like watching like the David productions of JoJo. If you get what I mean, it's like where the mismatched colors. Sometimes they're like green, and the next frame they're purple for some reason. If you get what I'm saying, in the earlier seasons.
Yeah, and I guess there's a brief rundown of the characters. Like you have like 5 characters. Like do you have
it's 6 characters, but 2 of them are paired.
Right. Yeah, you have Sunanori Mido, who's a puppet master. Amaya, who is a schoolgirl disguised witch. And then as we mentioned, Bonnie and Fermina is like a cop duo, crime fighting duo. And then Diva number 5 is like a songstress mech. So she lost her voice, and it's like her soul's like inside a mech. And then like an immortal vampire, Siugnus is how you pronounce this, I guess. Sugnus. I don't know.
Yeah,
But yeah, and then it's kind of it's really really exciting, and it's nice to see that just usually Saga's not really about cinematics. They usually are very upfront with like how the game looks, how the game plays, what the players are gonna do. So it's just obviously nice to see like an announcement of a new game, just showing gameplay footage for a lot of it. And yeah, this is definitely on a lot of our radars for sure. Going into
and
next year.
I'm kind of in terms of like the key staff behind this game. Akitoshi Kawazu, who is basically the grandfather of Saga, he is the director, which is sort of interesting. Like at this point in his career, I sort of wonder if they're going to be more hands off or like executive. But he's the director of the game, so that's cool. Masanori Ichikawa, who has been like the Saga producer for a while, kind of almost like his follow up. He's the producer. Kenji Ito is back, which is of course he has to be back.
We already know what's going to be the best soundtrack next year. Like, even if the game itself is shit, that soundtrack is going to be top.
Now, here's the one part. Here's the one part about the key staff that is just minorly disappointing, is that the character design is Satoshi Kuramochi, and he did art on Scarlet Grace, but the character design for a lot of Saga stuff has been Tomomi Kobayashi. I think I got her name right. and she doesn't seem to be present this time, so it's a little disappointing.
To
Like,
be
oh,
fair,
Yeah.
though, we were just talking about earlier how like some of these new character designs are really resonating with folks. So I mean,
yeah, it's good. It's just
Yeah,
It's
it's just a change, you know. Like Saga people are very legacy traditional
Well, this is
people.
like trying to sell a Final Fantasy game without an Omino cover. You know what I'm saying?
And then yeah, it also shows like there's some like battle clips on like the Japanese site, and like it shows some of like the other playable characters that aren't the main characters. Like one of them's just like it's just like a cat. It's just like here's your party member, a cat. It's like hell yeah.
Peak Saga. I do love looking at some of these screenshots. Like we were talking about earlier, how this is very clearly based off of the Scarlet Grace battle system, but there's this thing that's like seems like a combo rate. So it's like
Yeah.
interesting how that's going to work out. But it seems like it could work both ways. If you get like wombo comboed by the enemy, suddenly you're going to be instantly wiped. Which that was a thing in Scarlet Grace too. So it's not like a real change, but it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. I don't know.
I love when I press confirm on Scarlet Grace and seeing my entire my entire party wipe because I didn't account for one little thing. It's like, yep.
Also, what's one thing that's sort of interesting lore-wise is one of the Celestials, Matcha, shows up in this. Matcha is one of the Scarlet Grace is like it's either 8 or 12 Celestials that are like the gods of that world, and they're unique to that game.
And wasn't Matcha one of the secret bosses you could do?
Yes, there was Matcha, and then there was another two of the Celestials you could fight. Matcha and another one. Matcha has an excellent battle theme, by the way. Anyways, I just thought that was interesting in that Matcha, some of the Saga like godly people kind of show up cross games, and not counting like the mobile game or whatnot where they all show up. Like, oh, Matcha's in this game too, which she's also only in Scarlet Grace. So it's like that's kind of interesting in terms of it's the same god. Okay, interesting.
And I know we've kind of given the Saga primer in a few different contexts. The last Saga game I played was Frontier Remaster, and then I also of course played Scarlet Grace the one time. I still haven't made like it's not even a year old, but I haven't played the remaster that came out last December. What's the title of that one?
Minstrel Song?
Yeah, that
Minstrel
one.
Song?
Yeah, but like I was reading some of this press release for Emerald Beyond, and how one of the things that Saga is going for is, even though it's still a video game, so it's on the back end, it's programmed by rules and logic, the story is attempting to be kind of as emergent as possible in terms of like doing things out of order is expected because there is no order. A lot of these games will have enemies that kind of level up with you in a way. You'll learn abilities based on what you use. It's not prescribed. There's not a way you don't. You can if you're very careful and people research and like dig. But you should, at least in my opinion, you shouldn't go into a Saga game expecting to quote 100% it. So it's kind of like a different mindset. You kind of got to go in and be like, what story am I going to encounter today?
I wrote about this a few times, including in my Minstrel Song review, and they also kind of the tagline they use is like create your own saga, and the idea that it's meant to be somewhat immersive or emergent, excuse me, and that every person's kind of experience is going to be different due to semi-random factors. And like you said, it is all bound by logic in some sense. So if you really dig into it, you can have like there is a prescriptive nature into if this happens, then this happens, then this happens. But it's if you don't dig into it, it does feel somewhat random and just kind of emergent depending on what you do and what order you go to places. And maybe this is the point you were bringing up, is in this game they specifically mentioned the 17 different worlds, and that like depending on which order you would visit them in, if you revisit a world after you've been there already, new things can happen. And it's just the exploration is the name of the game here. It's meant to be, you're just meant to have wanderlust and explore and see what happens. It's not a straight through line.
There's this one screenshot I'm seeing from the press site that makes it seem like the game very clearly. Like, I don't know what these colored lines mean, but some of them are green, some of them are blue, and obviously there's going to be something where it's like a little like kind of hint to, hey, maybe you should do these next, or maybe you've already done these, or something like that. But it's like I'm excited to see how the new framework works, because like having like there's obviously like this hub. I'm guessing this is the Emerald Beyond in the title or something, but I'm so excited for this.
I do like how even though it sounds like they might be going a half step towards prescribing, like, hey, you should check this out or do this. In the example that's posted here, we have one in our chat here, one on the news post on the site. It's like, yeah, you have these 3 emerald choices here and these 4, 5 other choices. Like, even though it tells you which direction you should go, it's still like you can go here or do this, or maybe you should go there. You've got 3 to 8 options. You know, you just kind of have to pick one, like whichever one you're most interested in.
I wonder if they
call-
just like they'll just randomize the green lines and be like, whatever, just throw it at a dart.
Yeah, so
I'll say another thing. This game has been like, assuming that they started right after like Scarlet Grace, like even just pre-planning after Scarlet Grace originally came out. That was 2016 on the Vita. This will have been in development for almost 8 years by the time it comes out. That is a huge development cycle, especially if they're like working off of the same framework. And it looks like this game's going to be huge, even by SaGa standards. It's like, oh man.
I just got done with my first 300-hour playthrough of Emerald Beyond. It was great. Game of the year.
Or SaGa game. Can you imagine?
But yeah, we're all excited for that one, slated for 2024. And unless there's a surprise we're not expecting, likely going to be one of the bangers next year that we're going to be talking about.
Man, 2024 already needs to stop for RPGs. It needs to stop.
I'm still trying to survive 2023.
Speaking of another, it's a banger in 2024.
The next one on the list, Josh, preempting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so here's one that maybe I'll just hand off to Josh right away, but we finally learned what Vanillaware is working on.
Yes, they are working on a new tactical RPG called Unicorn Overlord, coming to PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series X and S, and Nintendo Switch on March 8, 2024, simultaneous worldwide release from Vanillaware, all places. This looks crazy. This looks like
Ogre battle.
like a very, very pretty and as complex as Ogre Battle.
The thing that boggles my mind, if you read some comment section, they're like, it's like, what is this artwork? This looks trash compared to Fire Emblem. It's like, I need to know what kind of drugs these guys are smoking. Because
So it is in your, it is like your typical like, you know, Vanillaware handcrafted, hand painted art style. And the game looks to be very much about a large focus on making formations, like in Ogre Battle. You have like a lot of character classes or class types, and then you put them into you organize them into like different squads, into different party compositions. So you're like forming an army, and then within battles you deploy them. I don't exactly know how the battle system will be in terms of like the fine details, but there seems to be like large scale battles that take place on the overworld map, and then like one of the screenshots provides like some sort of siege on a kingdom, and then there's also some more intimate, like smaller scale battles where characters face off like in a 2D style. And of course, as with any good Vanillaware game, a part of that trailer showed off the food. And you know, it's not a Vanillaware game until you show a little bit of the food and be like, oh fuck, I'm hungry now. So that's gonna be a component. A component also, as they mentioned, you'll meet about like over like 60 distinct characters that you can recruit into your army. It looks really fucking cool. The first tip off that that hinted me that this is the new Vanillaware game was actually like the character model, because not too long ago, just like a few months back, I watched the teaser of Vanillaware's upcoming title that was in the 13th Sentinels prologue disc that only released in Japan. So there was like maybe like a 20-second teaser of it, and it's like had that knight in the armor just facing the camera. It's like, oh, that's Vanillaware's new title that they're teasing. Then sure enough, when this trailer starts, it's like, oh shit,
that
is this
was
the new
real.
Vanillaware?
Legit.
So yeah, I mean,
did we mention this game is coming to Xbox? Kind of
yes, yeah,
coming on everything except for PC.
Not PC.
Not PC.
Except for PC for some reason.
Vanillaware PC.
Wait. If we're lucky, we might get a PC version through the Microsoft Store if we're lucky.
Oh yes.
But yeah, other than that, Vanillaware and PCs, Vanillaware is like, oh no, not that. Anything else but that?
Is the collector's edition available for Xbox? Because if it's not coming out on PC, I might
It
just order
is.
that.
The
Okay, yeah,
collector's
I'll order that.
edition is- It's
Yeah. So yeah,
Um,
I mean, I want to hear what you guys thought of. Like, this was like, I was very very excited.
I'm excited for it. I think the funniest thing is that I was watching that trailer and it's like I was like, is this Vanillaware? Because there's like some company, like some studios that've gotten close enough to emulating their art
Yeah.
style that you can't be sure. Then the food comes out and it's like,
Mhm.
ah, yeah, that's Vanillaware.
It's funny. It's like for a lot of people, that's a thing that it's like, oh, I see food. That's so fucking Vanillaware.
like they had to draw that food to flex like we're the real deal.
Yeah, and the basic premise is like you're like a fallen prince trying to get your reclaim your kingdom. So you use this ring of the unicorn to gather people to your cause, and you go around like the world throughout 5 nations to rally people under your cause. Is like the basic framework they're going with, and it's cool. That's like this medieval fantasy world, and there's like a lot of like races. So it's not just humans. You have elves. You have like beastmen,
You have the angels.
angels. Yeah.
Because that's the thing with the ogre battle too. There's an angel, was it in the original one, where they
Mhm.
kidnap an angel and kind of force her to do the bidding for them. But
So yeah, man, just right as March ends and then after Rebirth comes out, here comes Unicorn Overlord.
March of the Black Queen, guys. March of the Black Queen.
Oh fuck, you're right. Did they do that deliberately? But yeah, I'm there day one, day -1. Let me in. I want it so bad.
Maybe this is that.
We'll be there no matter what.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If you're in Canada, Video Game Plus is the only retailer offering their exclusive limited editions. Just
Is that
remember
good or bad? Is that good or bad?
That's a good thing, actually. They're
Okay.
some of the best retailers.
Video Games Plus seems pretty good in that they have a lot of imports
Mm.
from both Europe and Asia and Japan, and just they ship to America anyway, not just Canada. And they're a really good store, it seems, for if you're trying to find more niche, limited retail stuff.
They're
Cool.
one of few Canadian retailers that offer free shipping
Like-
to Canadians.
For example, if you want to buy Batten Kaitos on Switch, but it's not there's no retail version in America, North America. I know that at one point they were selling the European version. They just imported, a stack of the European version so they could sell it here. So that's cool that there's a place that does it.
That's pretty cool.
The Canadian bros are finally winning for once. We
There you
finally
go.
got an exclusive limited edition that's for the Canadian retailers.
But yeah, that was for I'll say seems like for a lot of people that was like the big announcement at the Nintendo Direct for our audience, which is understandable. It is the next big thing for Vanillaware, and Vanillaware.
I haven't think I have played
Yeah.
a single bad game from them in my honest opinion. Like even like at worst, it's still like a high mid. It's like
A high
never a
mid,
bad.
okay.
A high mid.
Yeah, it's it's like a good 7.5.
A high
Yeah,
mid.
There's never a bad game from them.
I'm going to propose a new grading scale at our site.
Me too.
High mid.
Mid, low mid, it's over. I don't know.
So over, and then the 10 out is the we're so back, the highest. Okay, I like that a lot. Oh fuck. Oh.
There were a handful of other announcements at the Nintendo Direct of like new titles coming out. One of which is from the developer of the RPG called Moon, Onion Games. So this Moon was, kind of a cult classic from several years back, and got a re-release back in like 2020 when it was officially released in English for the first time. I think we had Colin on the podcast a couple times talking about Moon, and I think it snuck into our top 10 that year.
Yeah, I did.
But so Onion Games have announced a new title called Stray Children. It is a bittersweet fairy tale RPG. It kind of has the same sort of like lo-fi visual aesthetic, and it's coming out this winter in Japan. But they are confirming that they are working on an English localization, but they can't commit to a release window yet. So the trailer does show like some of the same like stylings of Moon. It's only about a minute long, but it's a good good chunk of gameplay, good chunk of UI, actual like how the game might actually look and play and feel. And as far as we know right now, it is Switch exclusive. So kind of a fun little experimental project that'll probably be something you'll have to play to truly know kind of like what it's getting at.
Yeah.
But based on how much Cullen really adored Moon, like I always kind of keep these like a little bit like, really eager to see what this has going for it.
It's pretty interesting because the battle system in Stray Children, like there's like a heavy emphasis on like using words, like specialized verbs to produce attacks or the ways of like initializing battles in it. So I'm always interested when they try to involve anything like with words and language and try to make that as like a main mechanic in RPG battle systems. Like in a way, Gnosia kind of does that because you're using like the art of language of making a compelling argument as a sort of battle system in that game. So, like I'm really interested to see how straight like the inner workings of how Straight Children does it of like involving that aspect, that concept to its battle system.
I also like how the main character it looks like a Snoopy like dog.
Yeah, it's adorable. So that's definitely one to look out for sure. That's his Onion Games very, very talented studio.
The next announcement is also a surprise, but pretty straightforward. Nintendo announced that next year in 2024, we'll be seeing a remaster of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. So obviously, probably the most consensus popular game from that Paper Mario series, the last one that felt truly like a turn-based RPG, like a successor to the Super Mario RPG, which of course also is getting a remaster. More on that later. And I just think that this is interesting because, earlier in the year we had Paul write up a couple op-eds about the status of the Mario RPG series, because Mario and Luigi and Alpha Dream's gone. We didn't know what the future of Paper Mario was, and then within the last half year, Super Mario RPG is being remastered completely. I should be saying like remade, really. And now we're also getting Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door remaster. So
I think someone in our general chat, or was it Chow? Maybe it was Chow. No, probably not Chow. Someone in our general chat
Okay.
actually posted. Do you know that meme image with like 3 foxes and like 2 of them look like they're laughing and one of them looks like he's upset?
yeah.
And it's like
Mario yeah, I know exactly.
Mario RPG is laughing, Paper Mario is laughing, and then Mario and Luigi is upset because they're dead still.
Oh.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's
You
very
know
sad.
what?
I
You know
mean-
what? You know what? I still am sad that Mario and Luigi is dead. But if that means because the whole excuse that they gave for why the Paper Mario games are no longer RPGs is well we have a series for RPG fans that like Mario. That's Mario and Luigi. That doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
So there's the to revive Paper Mario. First was that releasing, remaking a beloved one, then finally correcting the Paper Mario timeline.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people say that it's like this has to sell better than Origami King. We need to send a message, and you know what?
That's true.
You know what? I can look if you're gonna be spiteful, at least be spiteful and say I'm gonna support this because I want. I'm here for that. I'm here for that.
Yeah. Okay. I can buy that. Okay. You sold me. I'll buy this game.
The one thing they need to make sure they add to this re-release, I'll call it a remaster because I assume it's going to be on like the same structure, same dialogue. There's actually 2 things.
We already know that there's new NPCs, so there is like additional content.
Oh, cool.
Well,
Okay.
remake then.
One, at least one way to go through dialogue faster or skip it.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people got caught off guard, and that game's final boss is no pushover. And it's sort of almost infamous that going through a lot of the dialogue before the final boss, because you have to retry it a handful of times, is not fun, because you can't skip it in the GameCube version. And 2, they should really bring back the Vivian trans element to that. Like that was kind of like sanitized in the English release before, and like obviously they should be thoughtful in how they bring that back.
I'd forgotten about that. In the
Me too, I
Japanese
forgot
original
about that.
script, it's more clear, but in the original English script, they kind of tone it down. Is that how it is?
Yeah, I think the Japanese script, it's basically a trans character, but in the English script, it's just blank female. They just kind of sanitized it. You wouldn't even know really. So yeah, they should be
No.
thoughtful in how they bring that back, or
Makes sense.
So
And that's coming out in 2024.
next year. We don't
Yeah.
have any. We don't know a date yet. Just next
Mhm.
year.
And the last announcement is we got the announcement of the newest entry from Riot Forge and their like League of Legends project to kind of diversify their portfolio with different titles. Like I've played the Ruined King and the what's the one that came out in April this year? I don't even remember.
Mage Slayer.
Mage Seeker. Thank you. I just
Okay.
needed you to like enunciate a
Mage
few
Slayer.
consonants. Anyways, the newest announcement, and this is I'm sure that League of Legends people know all these characters and people that I don't. It's a cute little game called Bandle Tale. So Bandle Tale is, well, it was a kind of a dual announcement. The official announcement of Bandle Tale coming out in 2024. And then also the announcement of a release date for Song of Nunu is coming out on November 1st. And that one's more of a straight up kind of adventure game. So I think it's come up in passing in some of our podcasts.
That one was previously announced. It's not an RPG, so we haven't really focused on it.
Yeah, so in League of Legends story Bandle Tale, you can play as their own Yordle, and it's kind of got like this quirky crafting Stardew Valley-esque sort of simi elements to it. So like it kind of has that like high definition pixel art style, etc. Seems to be sort of the vibe it's going for.
As someone who doesn't know much about League of Legends at all, like if I were to just see this key art by itself, I would not have guessed, oh, this is League of Legends. You got these little like, I don't know, elfish Ewoky things.
They're Yordles.
I guess they're called Yordles. Okay. Were these in either of the games that you played?
Yeah, there's a Yordle character. I don't remember there's one in Ruined King, but there's a pretty key one in Mage Seeker. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it definitely looks like it's kind of going for that farmy sim crafty isometric vibe, which I kind of appreciate, even though that's not like my jam. The fact that they're diversifying their IP in that way is that they've got the turn-based RPG with like that comic book art style from Airship Syndicate. They've got the pixel art style from the for Mage Seeker from the people who made Hyper Light Drifter.
It wasn't Hyper Light Drifter.
Oh no, it wasn't them. It was Moonlighter. That's right. And then they've got Bandle Tale, which is completely its own thing. Lazy Bear Games is the developer. Let me just punch that into Google real quick just to see kind of what else they've done. They're from Lithuania. That's kind of neat. They've done Graveyard Keeper. They've done Punch Club. So yeah, it looks like they were founded in 2012, which for a studio is pretty recent, 11 years. But that's kind of neat, that they've been able to find a developer headquartered in Vilnius, Lithuania, to work on their giant IP. So I kind of appreciate that, just as a concept, the fact that they're willing to kind of be bold and do that. Outside of the new game announcements at the Nintendo Direct, we of course got some, and we're of course not covering everything. They finally gave us a title for that Princess Peach game that they kind of awkwardly showed off a few months back, where they didn't have a title for it.
They're like new Peach game. It's like,
yeah, it was so funny to see that in like the formal, like every quarter Nintendo releases like, here's our upcoming like list of games that we're releasing in every region. It's very formal, and it was just sort of funny to see on there like upcoming game starring Princess Peach was like the official tentative title.
And now it's called it's called Princess Peach Showtime. Not in our wheelhouse, but it does look very, very neat.
Yeah,
I know people are excited for it. F-Zero kind of has its experimental thing.
I've seen a handful of like people on Twitter who have like young daughters who are apparently they've seen the Mario movie, they love Peach, and they're like, "Oh my god, a Peach game! We need it."
That's a really good demographic to hit. But I didn't think about the people who watched the Mario movie.
Yeah.
I had some coworkers who they took their young children to see the Mario movie, and now they're really into it. And didn't you say Paul's kids were as well?
Yeah, that's why he wrote up. That's why he wrote up that Super Paper Mario thing. Is that his kids are just like, we want anything and everything to do with Mario right now. So we're like, okay, we'll play this Wii game. Hey, they like it. It's fun.
Yeah.
So one of the ones that, of course, we kind of teed up earlier is that we did get another look at for the Super Mario RPG 2023, the remaster remake coming out this November. Talking about some new changes to the battle system, how they are implementing action commands, which is kind of a Mario staple at this point. I don't remember if the action
The original game
commands
had some.
they
The
did.
original game had
Okay,
some.
it's
Yeah.
been so damn long, I don't remember. But it clearly like tweaked, and the UI is all updated and things like that. And if a Mario RPG or Mario RPG adjacent game didn't have action commands, I'd be concerned. So we get some details about how those work in this game. And some combo moves mechanics. The new trailer is basically all gameplay, which is always kind of fun. So just a fun new look at this game that's basically coming out 2 months from today.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing, like the triple move mechanic is really neat because it's like a different like super move depending on your party composition. So you see that a little bit in the trailer. But also like you can like re-challenge some bosses post game, so like powered up versions of some bosses, which is kind of a nice because for a lot of people going to Super Mario RPG that played, it's like it's for the most part it's pretty easy like throughout the whole thing. So for people who want a challenge, there's like new challenging like battles in the remake.
We also got some updates. These include a bunch of new release dates. We had learned not too long ago that Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes was being pushed into 2024. We got a new trailer for that. It's obviously coming out on more than just Switch, but at the Nintendo Direct, it was announced that Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes will launch on April 23rd. And we also got a new little trailer accompanying that. I'll be honest, I didn't watch this trailer because I just latched onto the release date and not the trailer itself.
It's not really a trailer. It's more like that Nintendo Direct style like narrator kind of talking about like in this game you will play as Cyan and all the different characters. It's not like it's that sort of like clipped of the presentation. The interesting kind of component to this is that there's another character. So there's the main two characters whose names I forget. One of them is Cyan.
Noah and Marissa.
No, well, Marissa is a previously revealed character, and in fact, they already announced that she's going to get a DLC. Like that was one of the first like Kickstarter stretch goals. But now she basically seems to have been elevated to like filling out the trio. Like before, it was more just a duo between the two.
Oh
two
yeah, I
men.
tried.
And,
Okay.
and now, and like even like the key art changed and the Steam art changed, where now it has Marissa on the art too. Like, oh, okay, so it seems like they decided, okay, we're gonna elevate her to be more of like a main character. I mean, there's a lot of characters in this game. Don't get me wrong, and I'm sure a lot of them are excellent. But like, she's gonna seemingly be very important. So that was sort of an interesting little change.
And they also talked about the very Suikoden-esque, and it's in a lot of RPGs now. It has like the headquarters mechanic that grows and gains functionality as you recruit more people, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, they shut off like one of the new screenshots shows like the party formation screen. I'm like, oh, goddamn.
Mm-hmm.
It's yep, that sure is so good.
We also got, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, that this next one on the list, going in order on our doc, was only at the Japanese Nintendo Direct, and that was that Spike Chunsoft announced a new entry in the Shiren the Wanderer series. Shiren the Wanderer 6 will be launching in Japan and East Asia next January, on January 25th. So, was it Tower of Fortune and Dice of Fate? Is that Shiren the Wanderer 5? So this is the first new
Yes,
game
that
since
is.
then.
Yeah.
So
That's
And
the
that game-
first new
that-
game in over a decade because that was originally a DS game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
I
is
actually-
like 13 or 14 years since Shiren the Wanderer 5. So and then that 5 just got re-released forever. I obviously had some un-English release as well. So this is the first new mainline entry in Shiren the Wanderer for like 13 or 14 years. So it's a pretty big deal for Shiren fans.
how do we feel about the art style? Because it's not pixel based. It's like
it's not
chibi.
pixel. It's fully 3D now. It's it's the sign of the times. I guess I do kind of miss the pixel, but if it still keeps like the challenging aspect of Shiren, because like the thing about Shiren is like the graphical style is nice, but they're really there for like that really hardcore dungeon experience.
That
Of, like-
roguelike gameplay.
Uh-huh.
Where it's like always different every time you go in.
Yeah. So, and that's something they really emphasize in this trailer too. It's like, it's still turn-based in the sense that like any action that you take, it'll move time forward by 1. So like you swing, all the enemies near you take like a step forward. You move, enemies act in accordance because you took your turn. Now we'll take our turn. So that's that's they're still retaining the core elements of Shiren in it, along with this new art style. So I think as long as they can keep that compelling gameplay loop, I think it'll do just fine. I don't know exactly specifically what's new in 6, or if they detailed anything aside from that. But obviously, new locale. It's a more it looks very. Like the environments look a lot more um tropical focused, I guess.
It actually kind of reminds me a little bit, just barely, of like the Link's Awakening remake in terms of its art style. Not quite as clean, doesn't have quite the same post processing, but similar sort of look to it.
Yeah, that's a good comparison point.
I don't know. It switched to 3D. Kind of reminds me of the N64 Mystical Ninja games, if you get what I'm talking about.
Which games?
Yeah.
Mystical Ninja, Goemon.
Goemon.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the N64 ones. Kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of that. I feel like that's kind of transition for Japanese developers when they go 3D. It's not like high budgety, so it feels like an N64.
You remember when Falcom went to 3D from Trails to Azure to the first Cold Steel?
Oh man, that was
That that
very
that
that
that,
was
that, was,
bad.
that, was, that was one of the roughest transitions to 3D.
Especially if anybody that imported the Vita version back when it first came out, that was awful. People think it's so good now. It's like, oh yeah, well, you never
It's
fucking
so good
imported
now.
it. If you imported a game on launch, you literally had to wait 20 seconds every time you leave a room, and it took like a couple months before they patched it and reduced it to 5. But it was bad. Yeah.
We also
But
got an announcement. Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
no,
Josh.
I was gonna say, is that all? It's like, is
I
everyone
think
hyped for
so.
this game?
Well,
I'm looking forward to Shiren, but it's basically reintroducing. Yeah, this is Shiren. This is what it is.
Yeah,
It's like
everyone's already
I don't.
familiar with it.
Yeah, well, I mean,
So.
yeah, but I mean, I don't know exactly like what's new in this one if they spelled out anything. And of course, when it comes out in the West, like I'll definitely play
yeah,
it.
we didn't get any English press
Yeah.
release or anything
Yeah,
like
they're
that.
really
So.
inaccessible. I think it's like the second game was like on N64, and I don't even think I touched the second game until it's
Yeah.
like it came to DS. It's like it's more accessible to like the mainstream, at least.
And they talk about the way that I believe Kite wrote this article. Yeah.
Yeah.
Described it as that it's still randomized, like Josh was describing. It's still got the same feel to it. They aren't like dumbing it down or anything like that. So it's still Sharing the Wanderer. Still got that mystery dungeon flavor to it. So yeah. And then obviously we're going to be looking forward to the next headline we hopefully write for this is the announcement of a plan for an English release. We also got the announcement of a new upcoming DLC for the Chucklefish and Pixel Pill little adventure RPG Eastward. It's getting the Octopia DLC is coming this winter for Eastward. So this is a game that I believe Paige covered for us back when it released and actually really liked it. Let me double check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
So
DLC is like it's like a standalone. It's basically just it doesn't seem like it's really a story thing or a follow-up or anything like that. It's quite literally just, hey, let's just take the characters from Eastward. They literally like step into an alternate dimension where it's the same characters, but now it's a farming sim. Just sort
Huh.
of fun.
All
Yeah.
right.
There
So
are
it's
too
just
many
like
farming sims.
so yeah, it's basically a farming sim version of Eastward, is what I gathered. So but yeah, Paige really liked Eastward, so she's excited about this DLC, even though it basically just changes everything in terms of it's not the same type of game anymore. But yeah, I guess it's interesting because that game came out like 2 years ago, and I don't
Yeah.
know if anyone was really expecting DLC, but here it is.
And then finally, I don't know if he knew this at all. It when I read this headline, my first response was like, "Wait, really?" And that is
Yes.
Waytales, which is a game that Josh and I kind of covered as a sort of like a surprise entry from like April when it released out of early access on PC. Waytales is now available for Nintendo Switch, so it was like literally shadow dropped.
Did you
Uh,
ever finish that?
well, the thing about Waytales is that it had like 5 or 6 bespoke regions, and each region has
Right.
its own story. And I got to the point where, and like each story, like it actually says like you've completed 10 of 20 locations in this region. But then I went to all the regions and completed, I basically made it so that all my check boxes were filled in, but there's no like end credits or anything like that. It's just like
Oh.
you're done. You can wander around now. You can do some random battles. Like that's it. Like come back later. We're gonna
okay.
add more regions. Like they're still treating the game like it's in early access a little bit, or I wouldn't say that. That's a little bit. I don't mean the connotation of that. They're planning to add to War Tales by adding regions, adding support, things like that. But I'm kind of like, I got my fill. Like I played through all the
Right.
1.0 release. I went through all the
Yeah, you
regions.
finished the content that was there.
I'm not
So,
that eager to be like, oh, you've got a new region, jump back in. Like, I got my fill. But when I think about it on Switch, I'm like, how is that going to work? It's kind of a little bit, not quite the Baldur's Gate thing, but I'm like, how do you play that with a controller? I'm sure it's
yeah.
fine, and I know that's a little bit me just being a fossil and not being flexible. But like, it's just one of those things where I can't imagine playing with a controller, but I'm sure it's not as hard as I'm making it out to be.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of like you can have a lot of party members on the field in that game.
Yeah,
Really.
and like,
Like,
Sometimes, so I have like a reflex to like grab my controller when I turn on Steam, and sometimes there's been a handful of times I like launch Baldur's Gate and I have my controller. I'm like, wait, this feels wrong. Like, oh yeah, I don't play this game with a controller.
what am I doing? So
Yep.
Yeah,
yeah, so War Tales is a game that I actually kind of really liked in terms of like the sort of experience that it offered. It's just a little bit different from even Western RPGs or other RPGs of its ilk. It just still is a little bit more like story light, a little bit more of just your adventuring band and the sorts of things that you encounter traveling across a continent. And it's very cool that it's on Switch. Just the shadow drops are always neat. So I hope it finds an audience. Clearly,
Yeah.
they must have done some market research to determine like, yeah, let's do the job required to port this thing and get it out there. So and it's kind of like it's a surprise, but not a bad one.
I'm just thinking of like hopefully they really resize the text for that screen in handheld mode, because some of that text can get really small when you're playing on PC.
Not only the text, but like when you're on the overworld and you're moving your little caravan around, like
Yeah.
on a PC monitor that I'm sitting 3 feet away from, it's pretty small. I'm trying to imagine that like playing that handheld on the Switch. So be interesting to see. The last bit of games are all games that were previously announced that were coming out later this year, that all got demos, and I believe all 3 of these games have demos that will transfer to the final release. Hopefully that's the correct statement. So in
No,
form.
no.
Dragon Quest Monsters is a weird one. We'll get to that. We'll get to
All right,
that.
I like how I say, hopefully that's the correct statement. Then immediately a bunch of the chorus goes, no. All right, let's just go in order. The first one, Star Ocean, the second story R. This is obviously the very cool looking remaster with new art style for Star Ocean 2 that is releasing in early November. It's coming out on Switch as well as PlayStation and PC. A new demo is now available. It's a 3-hour demo that only goes. It's a time limited demo that also only allows you to go so far. So it's kind of got 2 limits to it that will transfer over to the final game. The new demo is now available on all the consoles and PC as well. Sometimes PC doesn't get the demo for whatever reason, but it does in this case for Star Ocean R. And then we got a pretty long gameplay trailer alongside. This wasn't in the Nintendo Direct directly, as far as I'm aware. That talks about just like how the battle system works, how the item creation works, all the other like ancillary systems that Star Ocean vets are aware of, but people who are going to use this as a gateway, a launching endpoint, might not know what that means. So kind of good little gameplay overview for Star Ocean, the second story
Yeah,
R.
they added fishing.
They
Yep.
added fishing, and they
That's a
even
real
actually
RPG.
added. So Josh, when he was talking about his preview when he played it at PAX, was talking about some of these things, and there's we actually have details on our site about like the new assault action gauge where you can I won't go into like all the specifics here, but you can like break an enemy's guard when you fill up their assault gauge, and then you can grab help from like reserve characters. And I guess you can even get characters from like other Star Ocean games.
Yeah, like
Weird like
crossover
crossovers.
cameos.
Yeah, like Letitia from Star Ocean 6.
The protagonist of Star Ocean 6.
Yeah, the protagonist. There's no
Yeah.
other protagonist. So just showing up and just doing like a kind of like a weird follow-up attack in some form, and then um yeah, so it's sort of interesting. Now also the world map shows private actions on the world map. The original game didn't have that, did it? I'm
I,
pretty
I
sure it
don't
didn't.
I don't think so.
I quite remember, like, once you
Yeah.
get a new character or after you
Yeah.
beat a plot beat, like, you kind of wanted just to randomly check the older towns just to see if there's new private actions. But it seems like they added that sort of quality of life where now you can see private actions on the map. I might be getting it conflated with the original game, but in any case, it's there. And then there's also details about like the crafting system, the cooking, publishing, conducting an orchestra,
Mhm.
all those sorts of specialties that Star Ocean has, which are always fun. I've written about it before. Bunny races. Everyone
Yep.
loves the bunny races. And then fishing, which is brand new. And they even introduced a new NPC
Yeah.
named Real. Of course, that's some nominative determinism there. If your name is Real, you're going to be a fisher. That's just how it is.
Oh, I see.
I'm gonna name my kid Real.
But yeah, that demo is available now. I downloaded it on my PC. I don't know when I'll get to it, but there it is. So the one demo that you've teed me up and says it does not carry to the full game, but is also now available, is a demo for Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince, which is the Dragon Quest Monsters 3 kind of
4.
successor. Wait,
It's like it's a prequel to 4.
prequel
but
to-
it's Dragon Quest Monsters 3.
Oh
That's
yeah,
literally
yeah.
what its
Oh
title is
yeah.
in Japan.
Oh whoops. I'm thinking about Sarah as the character.
Ah.
My mind already went to fucking Sarah.
yeah.
Sorry.
So the game is Switch exclusive. It'll precedent shows that it'll likely release for PC in the middle of 2024, but we'll see. But the demo is now available. Adam, you kind of implied that the demo for Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince is set up a bit unorthodoxly.
You don't transfer your playthrough or your stats. It's just like the type of monster that you collect. You can like
So
transfer that, and that's
yeah,
it.
so like yeah, your story progress from the demo does not carry over. You don't pick up where you left off from the demo, story progress wise. But any monsters you recruit in your active battle party and your reserves and their levels does transfer over into
Oh,
the full game from the demo. So it's like mostly your monsters only, nothing else. Very
Okay.
weird.
Hey, at least you get something out of it. But that demo is also now available. I believe I saw Paige was playing through it. I couldn't quite
Mhm.
parse how she was feeling of it. She was kind of throwing some off the cuff remarks about her experience just in our chat, but hasn't put together a preview or anything like that.
Cullen isn't playing it too. It's like it's just because like like you might be thrown off by the DQ monsters in terms of like there'll be some parts of it where you can't like directly control your monsters.
yeah. So
Mhm.
Paige made a comment like, "Wait, can I not control my monsters?" And I don't really know the full context, but a lot
Yeah.
of Dragon Quest games actually have Uh, I know Dragon Quest 8 had it. I don't remember if 11 had it, but a lot of Dragon Quest games oftentimes have like a monster coliseum where you can't control your monsters. You just like pick a team and let them fight. So I'm
Yeah,
assuming this game has a similar mode. Um,
yeah. I haven't tried out the demo for
so
myself either, so
I think
but
11 had it. Did 11? I know 8 for sure. Sorry.
Um,
I'm just still in the wait for PC version territory for me, especially after hearing some people like, the performance.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, so it goes.
And I played Dragon Quest Treasures on PC, only a few months ago, and it's a pretty solid PC port. So it's like, hey, I'll just wait.
Yeah. So, yeah.
and then the last demo, I couldn't parse if this was at the Nintendo Direct or not, but the
It
Silent
seems
Hope
like it
from
was.
Marvelous.
None of these were advertised in the direct. You would
Okay,
think they would be because that'd be
cool.
a pretty big deal, but they were all just separate press releases. Say, there's a demo out. It's like, okay, thanks.
And like this game, Silent Hope from Marvelous, was initially announced at a Nintendo Direct.
Yes.
But so I guess this demo wasn't technically at the Direct, but
I
announced at the same time. But anyways, go ahead, Josh.
I have been a sicko mode for the Silent Home demo.
Oh, tee us up. The Silent Hope demo that's now available.
Okay, so this also was on this demo was also on PC. This demo at the very most, if you're a sane person, if you just want to do just a playthrough of this demo normally, at the very most you could probably squeeze out an hour and a half. For usually probably less, but I, I have put over 5 hours into this demo because I'm a fucking insane person. Um, in this demo, in Silent Hope, you have 7 playable characters, and they all play differently. They have different skills, different movesets. And in the demo, you play through the tutorial, and then you play through like the first like 10 dungeon floors into like the first story boss. And then like in the demo, it caps you at level 10, and you can only get like rank 1 armor. But your armor has rarities. It can be common, who cares? It can be green, which is blue, which is okay, and then orange is legendary. Uh-huh. So those could drop. So I put over 5 hours of this fucking demo because I've gotten insane, and the 6 of the 7 playable characters I have gotten them to level 10, and I have picked up all their legendary weapons, and they also have legendary accessories that I just pass around between them. And there are also like slot gems that you can put into them. Like some loot has like a gem slot that you can slot in a gem, and these gems also have rarities as well. So one of the legendary accessories I have has a legendary gem in it as well.
So you're just gonna
and-
be like in God mode when the game releases.
So I guess I just been kind of like experimenting like what sort of like stat modifiers and transfixers are in this game in terms of like like some is like cooldown reduction on your skills, some is like dodge cooldown on your or cooldown reduction in your dodge, some is like attack speed, some is like crit damage, and all that sort of stuff. And then and then for the last like the 30 minutes before I like put down that game, like I've been trying to farm the first boss again, and again, trying to get the last legendary to drop for the character that I don't have, which is the magic caster dude. That's the only one I have left. And I'm like, well, I'm this far in. I have 6 of the 7 done. Before this game comes out, I might as well try to get his stuff, right? So
Yeah, you can't stop now.
yeah, I can't stop now. I mean, I'm this far in. So I mean, I enjoyed my time with it. It's a very simple game. It's a very simple action. It's probably something like you could even like have like your younger sibling or like your kid can play, you know, and it's like it's totally fine for that. So it's like it's kind of like a beginner's first action RPG. Like at the very beginning, it seems very simple. You start unlocking skills, you beat up enemies, isometric camera, so on and so forth. So it's not like a deep game, but it's like for me, it's like a relaxing game. You know, it's like not. It's a game that I don't really have to think about what I'm doing and playing. I'm just kind of going through the motions, kind of just having a good time, just you know, going through it.
Sounds like a Room Factory game.
I think that kind of covers us for all of the headlines for like around. I guess some of these, like you said, aren't technically Nintendo Direct, but all the things that were covered at the Nintendo Direct, I think we've hit those here, as well as the state of play. Making sure I'm not missing anything that fall through the cracks. There are a few other things that came out just very recently or just after those 2 events that we'll kind of go into here as we start to wrap up. There's still a number of headlines here, but some new release dates and delays. So we'll try to kind of wrap through these kind of pretty quickly. So in kind of no real order, there's really no categorization to this. Obviously, one of the other releases in late September is the upcoming DLC for Cyberpunk 2077 and the accompanying Cyberpunk 2.0 update. I think this is the first time we learned this, that they're actually kind of be landing on slightly separate dates. The Cyberpunk 2.0 update, so the general update to the base game, is coming out on September 21st. DLC, as previously announced, is coming out on September 26th. They announced a new cinematic trailer for the game, which I kind of looked at and kind of went in one ear out the other. It's a lot of just Idris Elba, just being Idris Elba acting as a new character in the game. I'm interested in like replaying through Cyberpunk at some point to kind of tee me up on where, because this is not an epilogue story. It takes place like in the middle of the in the middle of the game. So I'm curious to see how that'll work out. That's kind of how like the Witcher 3 expansions worked as well, or at least I think so if I remember right. But we have the new trailer for that, as well as some details about what's coming out with the 2.0 update.
I think the staggered release date, I think, just sort of makes sense in terms of have the update come out first, and maybe have a few days to do hot fixes or whatever in terms of like making sure it lands okay, it doesn't weirdly affect anyone's game or progress or whatever, and then have the DLC come in like the next week versus like all at once. So that's my assumption.
We got a new trailer for the upcoming release of Disgaea 7: Vows of the Virtueless. This game released.
That's also a demo.
Oh, that's also a demo. Yeah. So does that one carry over?
I don't remember.
Yes, it does. It will. So yeah. So there you go.
Lots of
So there's
demo. If you like demos, you got plenty to choose from.
right. Yeah, if you're not already underwater with games that have fully released, you can play demos for games coming out in like a couple months. Yeah. So that's Disgaea 7 coming out in early October. Here's an interesting headline. On a slower week, we could have led with this maybe. Digital Eclipse, and this is out of nowhere as far as I'm aware, is working on a full 3D remake of the very first Wizardry game, Wizardry Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord, and not quite a demo, but it is in early access right now, so you can play it. I haven't gone to the Steam page to see if anyone's tried. Wizardry is like a very kind of acquired taste, but just the fact that we're talking about Wizardry as often as we are, like in the last couple years, in these kind of very strange kind of formats, is interesting, and I'm here for it. And hey, it's I'm on Steam. It's got 29 reviews for the early access thing that released yesterday, I guess.
Yeah, it was a surprise announcement out of nowhere, so they didn't. Leading up to it, just like kind of a shadow drop. But they did say that the entire core game is playable from start to finish, and it's in early access because they just want to. There'll be likely some bugs and some visual elements that aren't like 100% finalized. They also want to localize. They want to add the text localization, so they want to probably bring it to other languages. Right now on Steam, it just lists English. They also want to, add a guide to in-game enemies, other features they believe will benefit players, and they stressed that like they didn't change like the core experience of the game. Like they didn't like make the game easier. They only added like quality of life features on top of like the full 3D interface. So they wanted to add like sort of the quality of life enhancements like higher fighting, navigation, spellcasting, party management, and all that sort of stuff. So just to get that info easier, because obviously this is a very very old and a very 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 important game in terms of like establishing the RPG genre in video games. This game first came out on the Apple II, like around the 1980s, like around 1981. And then obviously it began development before that around 1978, and then had like a beta period throughout 1980. And this is the game that inspired games like Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, all the most all the RPGs that you think are the pillars of RPGs now. This is the game they were looking at when they were making that game. So Wizardry.
Speaking of not making it easier, I'm reading some of these Steam reviews, and they're great. My character died in the second fight, 10 out of 10.
Yep.
And someone's like, took a default level 2 party and out for a spin, ran into a group of level 5 rogues. Let's do this. Things
That's
like that.
a traditional Wizardry game.
And it's really fucking cool because they built this on top of the original Apple II code. So that means that you can have the original game running on the Apple II interface in real time as you're playing through the full 3D remake, which is fucking crazy.
That sounds bizarre.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a similar deal with that Wonder Boy remake?
Did they?
Yes, I played that. You could like instantly switch to like, what is it? Is it the Sega Master System graphics? Like in a swap of a button, and it followed the exact same physics.
Crazy. Yeah, and Digital Eclipse is well known and well respected. Their recent releases are the Atari 50, the Anniversary Collection. There's a lot of great talk about the recently like docu game release of the making of Karateka, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection, and those are like all phenomenal like archives of like old games. They really do it justice, unlike just re-releasing those old games with modern touches, and most importantly with those types of games, like getting like a digital archive of those, like the development history and assets and anything that they can find, and putting them into those games and making sure that's all accessible in that format. That like that's like they actively want to preserve video games in an earnest fashion, and it never, I have a lot of respect for Digital Eclipse and the work they do.
Them and Night Dive, who just did the System
Yes.
Shock remake, are like, I'm really glad we have studios like them doing what they're doing.
hmm So that this is something that I definitely want to keep an eye. I want to get it when there's like a less busy time in games, and also I need to like relearn how to play Wizardry because man, getting into Wizardry is so fucking hard. It is a brutal punishing game. Oh man. It was so cool just to see. It's like, what the fuck, really? That's awesome. That's awesome.
We had a small update for the upcoming Grand Blue Fantasy relink. It announced a new character, Gonda Goza. So, Chow, is this Chad? Is he worth
He's
it?
always like this like master that beats the shit out of people and train them, and then he just goes off fishing or something.
His play style seems to be very melee focused. So if people who want like a brawler type character, this seems to be your dude.
I wonder, like, they had, was it this character? His VA kind of passed away quite a while ago. I wonder if they actually recast him.
Kind of passed away or passed away, Chow.
Well, he passed away,
Okay.
and like quite a while ago, and I'm not sure if they had like all those lines for this guy recorded like way before, because in like the actual Grand Blue game, it's like all the like his newer events is like it's just kind of like reusing his old lines and stuff. I'm just like wondering if they have this all done before they put this character in, or
I'd have to imagine a new VA that'd be really weird if they're just like using like very very old lines from the browser mobile game.
it's like
I don't know anything about this character. This is the first time I've heard of this character because I don't.
Yeah, he's always like there's like one dynamic pose of him, and when you fully uncap this guy to level 100, he gets like this Akuma pose where he stands with his back, and the way Akuma always stands with his back, where you could see like the kanji like heaven on his back or whatever, but yeah, he does that pose, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, this dude's so badass!" But gameplay wise, it's not that good. So he was never a fan favorite of mine.
Is this a character that would have been expected to be playable in an RPG like remake or a relink?
I guess if you're into the series, I guess he's kind of like a old veteran character. He's there since like the ancient times, and then like Lancelot and Percival. Those are like early characters, right? It's like it's like they have to put them there because
his grandfather did.
Yeah, it's like these are early.
Well, I mean, it's cool. It's cool. They also since the Grand Blue Fantasy Showcase Part 1 thing happened. I guess the only other notable thing for the relink side of that was they like had like a cool rundown. Actually, that showed like gameplay footage of like every single character that's been revealed in that game, like in like almost like a reel, but like you get to see some substantial things from every character that they've shown off. So that was fun to like watch and see. Like, oh, okay, this is what this character does. Once again, just around the corner. That's February first, second. I forgot. Early February next year.
And then I just saw these trailers come by my feed like a couple hours before this podcast. Trailers for the upcoming level 5 games that were announced earlier this year. Looks like a couple for Deca Police, one for Fantasy Life: The Girl Who Steals Time, and one for the big Inazuma 11 RPG, Inazuma 11 Victory Road. So these are all basically gameplay trailers. Well, I guess for the Fantasy Life, it's a first trailer. Go ahead, James.
So all three of these are going to be playable at TGS. I've been trying desperately to figure out how I can play them if I can just walk up on one of the business days. So we've been trying to figure out who's handling PR for these. What I can tell you is I found out that the booth that they're at TGS is the same booth that Nintendo's at.
Wow.
So yeah, so I sent out. So Nintendo of Japan obviously like got an email from TGS saying, "Hey, if you want to sign up for these for like appointments with companies, here's how they have it done." It's like Nintendo Japan says, "Hey, so we send out a form to anyone on our press list." It's like, fuck. So we'll see how that works out.
Good luck. Yeah, next weekend is TGS, so when we come back here, it'll be I guess I don't know if TGS is going to be already done or if it's going to be in the middle of TGS. I don't know exactly what the timing is. But
So next week I'm not going to be on the Tetracast
Yeah.
because Saturday and Sunday next week are TGS days.
okay,
But
yeah.
granted. Oh yeah, definitely won't be able to because it would be a Friday night, or like Saturday, like very very early morning in Japan time. So that yeah.
Yeah. So
Anyways.
we salute you, James, for your good luck.
These
all I can say.
like level 5 should have public demos. So my hope is that even if I don't have an appointment, I can walk up on one of the business days and hopefully be able to play in the regular line if there is one. But I'm sure I'll be able to figure something out.
You're gonna
Hopefully.
get the
Hopefully.
bodyguards and body block you. Like, no, can't get the.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, these trailers are basically going to be the ones that they like kind of put on loop in Tokyo Game Show. So these are just like kind of getting them out there early, and then if you're like there in person, like James, when you're around the level 5 section, you'll have these like trailers on loop for these games.
So I was just watching these trailers just now because they only released earlier this morning. So Deca Police is probably the most interesting to me. It's got like a turn-based battle system. It's got like a stylized anime-ish art style. I don't know how to describe this, but it looks like a level 5 game. And it's also got this sort of like detective kind of putting together evidence sort of mechanic.
Yeah,
also.
that's the mechanic I'm
Um,
most interested in. Yeah.
So these trailers are up on the Japanese level 5 YouTube channel, and I'll post them to our site, by the end of the weekend at least. And they have English like subtitles, so you know what the characters are saying, but a lot of the UI is still in Japanese, so it's a little bit hard to know exactly what I'm looking at. But yeah, it's Deca Police seems to be sort of half and half turn-based RPG, and then also the sort of like gathering evidence and determining conclusions and of some form, so some sort of detective police kind of mechanic to it. And then the level 5 trailer, the Fantasy Life trailer, it looks like what I understand Fantasy Life is in terms of you're creating a town. There's fishing, there's farming, there's shopkeeping, those sorts of elements. It's got a very chibi art style to it. Everyone's got a head that's as big as their body, sort of thing. But it's cute. I know a lot. I think we've talked before. Fantasy Life on 3DS has a lot of fans, so I'm sure they're excited for this one.
And the Inazuma 11 trailer, it's actually a fair chunk of it is actually just like 2D animation, though it does have a little bit of gameplay. It actually kind of reminds me a little bit of like Scarlet Violet, only like it's not Pokemon, it's all soccer.
It's funny that you mentioned that because a lot of people, I forgot if it was like around Sword and Shield or before that, but people compared that to like Yokai Watch 4, and Yokai Watch 4 just looks so much better with that open world style. And then obviously Yokai Watch was like kind of like sort of not Pokemon, and it just looked way better visually and obviously performance wise.
And the last couple of things here are just some newly announced dates or some updates to some things coming out over the next couple months. We knew that September 27th was the date for the second DLC for Wolong Fallen Dynasty. We also knew that Wolong Fallen Dynasty was going to have a Lies of P collaboration, of all things. Turns out they're happening on the same date. So Wolong Fallen Dynasty will have its Lies of P collaboration and its second DLC on September 27th.
It seems like the Lies of P collaboration is just like 2 new weapons.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. I mean, it's a free collab, that's about what you expect.
Genshin Impact 4.1 is launching on September 27th. We can't even ask Chow about that anymore because he doesn't play it anymore.
I really don't. I haven't logged in like a month and a half.
How do you
So,
pronounce this name? There's 2 new characters, Nuvelet and Riothelisi. I'm not familiar with this name, sorry.
These names are too hard for me to say.
So apparently Fontaine region is being expanded. So you'll encounter the fortress of Meropide. We probably sound like such chumps trying to read this. So yeah, the 2 new playable characters, Nuvelet and Riothsley.
And they announced our anniversary awards, guys. You get 20 rolls. That's it.
Good? Okay.
I need to know the etymology of these names in order to pronounce them correctly.
Hmm. Cassette Beasts is getting a DLC on October 4th called Cassette Beasts Pier of the Unknown. It is a new storyline, a new location, 12 new monsters, few costumes. Cassette Beasts I played back when it released in April, but it's kind of the similar thing as earlier in the podcast where I'm like Waytales. Well, yeah, I played Cassette Beasts, I enjoyed it, but I'm kind of like, if the DLC had been out when I started, I would have surely played it, but I don't see enough here to like be like, oh yeah, time to re-download and boot this back up. It's a pretty good Pokemon like though, so if you haven't played it, go ahead and check out Cassette Beasts. And it's getting its DLC in just under a month. I believe we knew everything about this next update except the date. And that's the 4 Mercenary Sagas Chronicles game, which they all have their own unique subtitles, are coming to Steam. The date for those is October 12th. So those are all originally just on Switch, and now they're going to be on PC as well.
So that means there are, for those keeping track, which is me, there are 7 of these games, and the first 6 of them are now on PC. The 7th one is still Switch only, I think.
Gotcha. Here's a pretty key one that actually kind of came up earlier. Gnosia, the social deduction game that originally released in the West in 2021, will be launching on the other consoles, PlayStation and Xbox, on December 14th. It got the Steam release just earlier this year in January. It was originally Switch exclusive. So,
All right, no more excuses. Everyone has to play it now.
I
No
still
more
have
excuses.
Yeah, you're
All
right.
right, I'll get the physical edition of Toho Luna Nights.
Okay, thanks, Chow.
Why is that a substitute?
Look, Chow.
It comes out around the same period of time, I think.
Why would you hurt
We're
me?
talking
like this?
we're talking about Gnosia, and he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna play Toho. Okay.
Classic Chow. Fine, I guess.
Broken. Oh, I guess I didn't quite keep these in chronological order. Oops. Broken Roads. This is the like Fallout like RPG, post-apocalyptic RPG that takes place in Australia. Will be launching on November 14th for Xbox and PC via Steam.
Paige is excited about this one.
I kind of looking forward to it too. Yeah, for Paige, it's kind of hilarious because she is in Australia. And she's like, yeah. Post-apocalyptic RPG Australia. Let's go.
This doesn't feel like
Let's
the type
go,
of
mate.
game Paige. This doesn't feel like the type of game Paige would like. But it's like, oh, it's in
Australia.
Australia. I live in Australia.
I'm obligated to play it. It's like if an RPG came out and it was like based in the Philippines or it took place in the Philippines. Like it might not be like my type of RPG. But like I gotta do it. I gotta get to do it for the Filipino people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. This is the new Owlcat CRPG that Josh got to talk about a little bit a couple weeks ago. Will be launching on December 7th for console and PC at the same time, which I think is a first for their studio because I think usually the PC release would launch earlier, and then the console release might launch with the definitive edition on PC as they kind of bundle it all together. So
one like it's really cool and kind of weird to see like more and more CRPGs coming to consoles because CRPGs are traditionally very like
PC centric, yeah.
PC centric, PC focused. Good, like keyboard and mouse is usually the way to play them. But I think it's just really cool to see like more high profile ones, like obviously Baldur's Gate, and then more of these CRPGs coming to consoles. Two, I'm really surprised that Rogue Trader is coming this year. It's not like what I saw at PAX West was like early or anything. But it's just like it to me. It looked like a game that was coming next year. I wasn't expecting it this year. It's cool to see that it's coming in this year, and hopefully it launches in a pretty like decent state because I know some of the Pathfinder launches have been a little rocky, if I remember correctly.
Kingmaker, I could not beat Kingmaker when I had my review copy. Like I was blocked out of the ending because like the quest would not progress properly. I would summarize it as Kingmaker launched in a terrible state. Like I don't think I could pull one that I played or witnessed firsthand that was worse. Wrath of the Righteous launched in a bad state, but to their credit, it was the sort of thing like if you followed the game on Steam, like every other day, it's like hotfix 1, hotfix 2, hotfix 2.5. Like they were on it, but then it's kind of like talk about a game coming in hot. That's the poster child.
I know a few. I have a few people. I know a few people, maybe Brian included, who they love the Pathfinder games. They don't really care about Warhammer. They're like, well, I like this studio. I like their games, so I'm going to try this one. But also, they were also not expecting this to release this year, and they're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to this in December, but Owlcat launches are usually pretty rough, so maybe I'll just wait until like February or
Well,
whatever.
also, I was Googling around as we're talking about this. Remember, they announced that second DLC set for Wrath of the Righteous, which was kind of weird because Kingmaker, they announced 3 and they launched 3. Wrath of the Righteous, they announced 3 and then they launched 3. And then they said they were going to make 3 more. And then DLC
Yes.
4 came out pretty quick, but apparently it's been,
Right.
as far as I can tell, I'm kind of like looking at Reddit and Steam, like radio silence since then. Like apparently they're still working on Wrath of the Righteous post support. I'm like, oh, I guess.
I think
I don't know.
Owlcat has 2 studios. They have, and I don't know how they're Russian.
Yeah,
And I don't know
it's a separate teams from what I
Well,
spoke with. Like, so
okay.
yeah, should it? So that should be separate from Rogue Trader's team because Rogue Traders, I understand, is a separate team in Allcat that's working on it.
I know. I think one is in Cyprus and one is in more proper Russia somewhere. I'll look this up. But
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, but we'll see. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully this launches in a decent state and nothing like what their past release launches have been. I don't want this to come out and be like, well, there's like five hot fixes in it, and that'd be kind of hard to do because this is launching on consoles as well, and I don't know if you can hot fix as easily as you can on console, right?
My
Like you
understanding
can't
is
just
that the CERT process is a little bit more
yeah.
cumbersome on console.
Yeah. So this would be so if they're trying to launch this on day and date on consoles and PC and they want to keep parity between them, like PC hotfixes would come in later than you would like if it launched in a bad state, if they wanted to keep parity between them. So I don't know. It's kind of a weird one.
And let's see, is that Hades 2? Feels like a long time we've heard about Hades 2. Supergiant Games announced formally that early access for Hades 2 is going to be pushed back. It's now planned for Q2 of 2024.
You
Good
know
news
what?
is that early access will be day and date on Steam. Apparently,
yeah.
I found out the other day that like Supergiant outright said that like making early access like Epic exclusive for the first game was one of the worst mistakes they made.
Oh, did they say that?
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah, it's yeah, I didn't care about Hades until like it launched on Steam and like it was fully done. So I don't know if I'll hop in on early access on Hades too, but it is. I really like Hades a lot, so I might give it the temptation. But then again, you look at what's like Q2 2024 already, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I'm honestly with how long it's been since the original Hades release, it's like, yeah, I understand why they're doing another early access period, but it feels like if you're gonna release early access in late 2024, it's like that almost feels like it would be when you'd expect the sequel to hit. It's weird.
I have full faith in Supergiant. I haven't played all their games.
Oh yeah. Like Hades 1 is like a set
Incredible.
like yeah, it's incredible. It's like a 10 out of 10 game. I'm sure Hades 2 will be just as good. They have not made a bad game.
Yeah,
So
I've
it'll
only
be
played
good.
Transistor and Hades, but both of those are excellent. And Pyre feels like the type of game that it's really hard to describe, but everyone who plays it apparently loves it. So.
Yeah, I really like Pyre. Like, it's an unusual game, but it's not definitely a game for everyone. But I liked it. Like it was so unique. It's definitely hard to describe. But yes, Supergiant Games, as you mentioned, I don't think like I played all their games and I have not been disappointed by a single one. So I have pretty high expectations of them, and they continue to deliver. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with a direct sequel for one of their games because it's their first one.
Right. And then the last bit of news I have here that to kind of sign off on is that obviously we have Tokyo Game Show to look forward to in the next week, but we also have, this has become kind of like a semi-regular thing. This is like their 5th one in 2.5 years, a new RGG Summit coming on September 20th. So that'll be in just a few days. So
And
Ryoga
it's worth mentioning. It's worth mentioning. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No worries.
this has a Japanese stream, which I think will have. Okay, there's a Japanese stream, and then like immediately afterwards, there's an English stream. So like I think the Japanese stream is still going to be like subtitled or something in English. I might be wrong, but then there's
It's
like
very
an English
bizarre.
stream. There's
Yeah.
an English stream right afterwards, and people are wondering, well, maybe the English stream will have like some of the English voice actors or something. But yeah, there's kind of like 2 streams back to back, and I know the English part of that is new.
Yeah, so we had the RGG Summit Fall 2023, and that's kind of the one primarily like to English audiences. Then they have a RGG Like a Dragon Direct, which is distinctly separate from that, but it happens like right after it or something. So it's just
Oh, so I literally looking at the press release here. The RGG Like a Dragon Direct serves as the development team's counterpart to the RGG Summit, which will air from Japan.
okay.
So yeah, there's like 2 different streams. So it seems like there are probably going to be a lot of overlap, but there might be some specifics for like the Western release or
I
something.
need to like work out the times for them. I didn't actually like. I know they were separate, but I didn't actually work out like what the times were.
Do they have a release date for Yakuza 8?
Well, but this is where you would expect it. We don't. We know it's supposedly early next year.
We also
Almost
haven't
not
seen any
February.
gameplay, right?
Well, I just say if Like a Dragon 8 is like February next year, it's so fucking over. What am I gonna do? It can't be. It cannot be February. If it's February, I'm gonna cry. I'm like,
I'm
SaGa,
gonna
what do
guess.
you
I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna guess late March. That's my
late?
guess.
Okay, late March sounds better.
You're eating so good, and now you're complaining.
I don't. I complain about having too many games releasing too closely to each other. Of course.
First world problems.
When Chow goes to a nice restaurant that he really likes, he orders like 5 entrees. That's just how he works.
No, you ordered the appetizer. You go into a fancy restaurant and you say you just want fries.
Is that the
Have
same
you
as
done that,
watching?
Chow?
That's equivalent of watching YouTube instead of playing the game.
I did that once before to a restaurant, and they're like, "That guy only orders fries, but he comes
God
here.
only orders rice.
He comes here often enough, so we like him."
They call you like the fry guy there, I bet, just behind the
Yeah,
scenes.
so I only like the fries, so he wanted to order fries.
That's all right. I respect that actually. If their fries are that good, it's worth just going there alone. All right.
And with that, we've finally made it to the end of everything that was announced or detailed or elaborated on in the last week. It's been quite a week, as it always is, the week before Tokyo Game Show. And because
I guess hold on. Before we end, I just want to say, I guess it's worth mentioning. Yes, we've been keeping up with the Unity development stuff behind the scenes on like all that. Like, and of course, like our fucking hearts go out to all of the affected developers, especially in the RPG space. Who have like
Good show.
who've built their games on Unity and are currently running their games on like upcoming games on Unity as well. It's just like the whole situation fucking sucks.
If this Unity stuff causes like Emerald Beyond to get delayed or worse, I will never forgive John Riccitiello.
I'm surprised this guy has a job. I mean, this guy literally got fired back, like, I don't know, 8 years ago from EA, and even suggested charging people for bullets on reloading. It's like, how the fuck does people even take this guy as their leader?
Yeah, it's not great. So we've been we won't spell it out because it's been long enough here. But we've been keeping up with it. We've been keeping an eye on it, and yeah, we're seeing like so many. So not even just like RPGs, but so many games in general are affected. It's like there's so many fucking games built on Unity. So yeah, we'll see how.
I like Josh Sawyer's tweet where he's like,
Mhm.
I love how there's a stream of updates from like the third parties that work with Unity that are all like, oh, don't worry, they've clarified it. The bad thing is actually worse. There's also this less bad thing that's the same amount of bad. And then there's a secret third bad thing. Like every time they open their mouth, there's just, you think you know all the details and it just gets worse.
It's bad enough that some publishers would rather like remove their game from able to be purchased just so that they don't have to like be charged this ridiculous fees as they have.
Yeah, and if for people who don't know, just a very very brief like synopsis of it is like how it is right now. Like Unity charges, Unity used to charge like a flat fee, and then like you release your product, and then they take a percentage of it, and then now they're charging it based on per install. Where like if you reach a certain threshold, then every new install you have to pay them like a certain amount based off of per install. That also includes like if you're like reinstalling a game and downloading it, that's counted as install. If your game is like it runs on a browser and a person refreshes that tab with that game, it's counted as an install because it has to run it again because it goes through a runtime tool. So that's just the very 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 basic thing of like them changing up their monetization model to be 10,000 times worse than what it already what it was.
And the thing is that literally every single dev is saying there is no way to reasonably track this unless there's been telemetry in like Unity games for basically forever. And one, if they did, that breaks GDPR and a whole bunch of privacy laws in like certain countries. Two, that would be an even greater breach of trust.
I hope to get sued to oblivion. That's all I hope.
Yeah, there's no way that this like fully stays, but it's like the fact that they're fighting this hard when literally everyone disliked that is just insane. Like the craziest thing about this whole situation is the In Exile tweet. I'm not sure if anyone saw it, but In Exile's like official Twitter account put out a tweet basically saying, "Hey, you want to charge us for games that we released a decade ago? Well, come fucking try and say it." Here's the tweet. "Oh yes, we're here to collect money for a game you released 10 years ago," and it was just the gif of Morgan Freeman saying "Good luck."
So yeah. So yeah, we're continuing to follow developments on that, and yeah, just wanted to give that a quick mention because I know we brought it up earlier.
Yeah,
and
give some context to it.
I guess the stress with the In Exile thing is that they're owned by Microsoft. So
In Exile has an excellent. They just have like the sense of humor that aligns with me perfectly. And I know this is more serious, but they're really good at these sorts of things.
All right, we thank you for wrapping that up at the end because it did provide context to some of the earlier conversation that we had. So a little bit past the 3-hour mark, but considering everything that we had to cover this week, I'm okay with that. So next week we might be able to go a little bit more deep into some game impressions, but it's still going to be heavy on the news, especially as we go into Tokyo Game Show and of course whatever the output of the RGG stream is as well. Of course, I know we're all still working, like Adam said, staying up till the middle of the night playing Baldur's Gate. We haven't really had a chance to really talk about Starfield a second time, so we'll try to squeeze that in. Of course, Bait and Kaitos remasters, see if we can get anyone on those. There's a lot, so we'll see what we can end up queuing up for next week as we go into the fall months. You can catch all of the news. I guess one other requisite thing here, just to shout out everything that Josh and James and Adam and others have all done to cover all of this, because like it's something like 50 published posts over the last like 4 days or something like that. It's crazy. So just thank you all for staying on top of that, updating all the databases on the back end with the release dates and platforms and things like that. So we have all the news all up on the site at rpgsite.net. You can join the Discord for the site by hitting the link at the top of the homepage or going to discord.gg/rpgsite. You can still find RPG Site on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Just search for RPG Site. You should be able to find us. And we will be back next week with another episode of the Tetracast. So until you hear from us next time, stay safe and take care. And we will talk to y'all later.